Ow, ow, ow. Michael Thompson clutched his knee where she'd kicked him, wincing as he watched Olivia Sullivan storm away in a huff. Was Pretty Girl really this violent back in high school? Can I even handle a girlfriend like this? Just as he was thinking this, he looked up and noticed Olivia Sullivan had suddenly turned and was glaring daggers at him. The expression on her usually adorable face was now downright scary. What? Still mad? Michael Thompson couldn't figure it out and didn't dare ask. But seeing the contract already marked with a red thumbprint brought him some comfort. He had prepared the contract on Saturday before going to find Pretty Girl. It was handwritten because he didn't have a printer. He'd originally intended to use it when discussing the investment with Olivia Sullivan that day, but in the end, he never even took it out before she ran off. This coming Wednesday, after accompanying Olivia Sullivan to her house for turkey dinner, he would be able to get the first investment installment. He needed to start preparing, too. Things were about to get busy. Sunday evening study hall didn't end until 9:30. Oakwood High School had both boarding students and day students. Jake Wilson was a boarder, while Michael Thompson lived nearby and was a day student. But Michael Thompson didn't walk home alone. He had company. His companion was his cousin, Emily Thompson. Emily Thompson was about half a year older than Michael Thompson. Not much of an age difference. As arranged by their families, they had attended the same elementary school, then the same middle school, and now the same high school. However, Emily Thompson wasn't as academically gifted as Michael Thompson. She had essentially bought her way into Oakwood High, a top city school, so she was now in a regular track class, while Michael Thompson was in the top honors class. The two walked across the school's school plaza, chatting idly. That tall guy in your class, the really handsome one, what's his name? Why? Nothing, just curious. What's his name? Don't know him. He's in your class, and you don't know him? Who are you kidding? There's only one handsome guy in my class, and that's me, Michael Thompson. You want me to kick you? All right. If Aunt Maggie found out I was setting you up with someone, she'd skin me alive. Besides, I really don't know him well. The only guy in class I know well is Jake Wilson. Want me to introduce you to him? Like I need you to introduce me to Jake Wilson? Michael Thompson chuckled. She might look down on Jake Wilson now, but he was going to turn into a real heartthrob later on. Just a tiny bit less handsome than himself, of course. The Wilson family and the Thompson family had always been close. Emily Thompson and Jake Wilson knew each other very well. They were practically childhood sweethearts. He remembered that ever since they were kids, Jake Wilson had liked Emily Thompson. But Emily Thompson never seemed interested in him that way. As far as he remembered from before, they had both remained single. Michael Thompson didn't want to meddle in other people's relationships, not in this life either. He just let things happen naturally. Right now, he was preoccupied with something else. Why get home tonight? I wonder if Dad has the tools ready. Robert Thompson had promised to teach Michael stone carving for a while in the evenings when he got home from school. If nothing unexpected came up, they could start tonight. He was actually looking forward to it. Just as he was thinking about this, he reached the school plaza and saw Olivia Sullivan standing there. Olivia Sullivan lived in the city, quite far from the school, actually, but her family's driver picked her up and dropped her off every day. When Michael Thompson saw her, she saw him too, and she saw the girl walking beside him. Olivia Sullivan's mind suddenly went blank. Her mouth fell slightly open, and she froze like a statue. Michael Thompson wasn't surprised to see Olivia Sullivan. He knew she'd be waiting for a car. He greeted her casually. Hey, Olivia, heading home? Olivia Sullivan didn't respond, just kept staring at him blankly. Michael Thompson figured she was still mad about what happened earlier, so he didn't think much of it. He said casually, well, I'm heading off then. See you, Tomer. Before the row of tomorrow was out of his mouth, just as he was about to walk past Olivia Sullivan, she suddenly grabbed his arm. Michael Thompson looked at her, surprised. He saw a very complex mix of emotions in her eyes as she looked back at him. A potent mix of confusion, doubt, anger, and an overwhelming dose of hurt accusation. Olivia Sullivan was in turmoil. What happened to only fall in love once and make it last a lifetime? So what are you doing now? Who's this girl? How could you? Acting so close with her. Liar. Olivia Sullivan desperately wanted to ask Michael Thompson who this girl was. She wanted to throw a tantrum, to act out, but she suddenly realized she had no standing to do so. After all, Michael Thompson had never actually said he liked her, never confessed any feelings. What she had heard in his thoughts hadn't translated into any actual change in their relationship status. She and Michael Thompson were still just classmates who had barely spoken to each other until a few days ago. Olivia Sullivan struggled internally for a long moment before finally managing to force out, I'll give you a ride home. Michael Thompson was thoroughly confused and turned to look at Emily Thompson. Seeing him look at the other girl, Olivia Sullivan immediately said, There's no room in my car. I can only take you. Who are you kidding? Michael thought. Is there anyone in your car besides you and the driver? How could there possibly be no room? Olivia Sullivan heard his thoughts, realized Michael Thompson had seen through her excuse, and quickly added in a low voice, I have something to discuss with you privately. Michael Thompson was a bit surprised. Olivia Sullivan wanted to talk to him privately? It must be about the investment. He thought, right, can't let the family know about that. Michael Thompson was way off track. But Emily Thompson? She was Oakwood High's resident relationship expert. And wasn't it always easier to see things clearly from the outside? How could she not see what was going on? Seeing her cousin being clung to by such a cute girl, she immediately covered her mouth, a knowing, amused smile spreading across her face. Oh, Michael, she chirped. I just remembered something. You don't need to walk me. I can go by myself. Bye. Hey, wait, Emily. Before Michael Thompson could stop her, Emily Thompson had already scampered off and vanished. Meanwhile, Olivia Sullivan tightened her grip on his arm, silently fuming and determined not to let Michael Thompson ditch her chase after that other girl. How dare he call her by such an intimate nickname? Seeing Emily run off, Michael Thompson gave up trying to call her back. He turned back to Olivia Sullivan, who was still clinging to his arm, leaned down, and whispered in her ear, the dean is coming. Olivia Sullivan jumped, quickly let go of his arm, pretended to nonchalantly fix her hair, and cautiously glanced behind her. There was no one there. Michael Thompson had obviously tricked her. Michael Thompson. Olivia Sullivan gritted her teeth, hissing his name. Michael Thompson remained completely unfazed. He explained, Look, I know you get furious if I provoke you, but we can't be grabbing each other like this in the middle of the school plaza. It looks bad. Looks bad how? It hurts my chances of finding a girlfriend. Don't you dare dodge. You try to hit me and expect me not to dodge? Am I stupid? Hey, what kind of animal are you? Since when do you bite? The car arrived quickly, and Michael Thompson got in with Olivia Sullivan. Once they were inside, Olivia finally asked, Where do you live? Pine Creek Town, Ridge Road. Michael answered casually, not thinking much of it as he gave Olivia his address. Olivia silently committed it to memory. Actually, Olivia and Michael lived in opposite directions. Olivia lived in the city, east of Pine Ridge County, where the school was located. Michael's Pine Creek Town was to the west of Pine Ridge County, completely different directions. Olivia told the driver to take Michael home first. After getting in, Michael pulled a sketchbook and a pencil from his bag and started sketching. Olivia found it a bit strange. Was Michael always this studious? He didn't even stop studying in the car. Still, she thoughtfully turned on the overhead light for him. Okay, tell me, what was it you wanted to discuss? Michael kept his head down, doodling in his sketchbook. He glanced up at the girl beside him for a second before looking back down at his drawing. That girl just now. The question slipped out before she could think. Michael looked up at her, surprised. Weren't you going to ask about the investment? Why is the pretty girl asking about Emily? Do they have beef? She seemed to look at Emily funny just now. How come? I don't remember them knowing each other in high school. What should I do? If my wife and my cousin get into a fight, whose side should I take? Need advice ASAP. It's urgent. Olivia was instantly exasperated. Did he even have to think about that? Of course, he should help. Wait, cousin? Question mark. Michael watched Olivia bury her face in her hands, too embarrassed to look up, and slowly typed a question mark in his mind. What was wrong with her all of a sudden? Olivia was so embarrassed she wanted the floor mats to swallow her whole. How could she be his cousin? Why didn't he say so earlier? And she'd actually been petty enough not to let his cousin get in the car. So humiliating. Thinking back to the mischievous grin on Emily's face as she left, Olivia flushed with shame. Olivia, what's wrong? Don't touch me. I need to be alone. Alone? Who's alone? Michael didn't understand, but he found Olivia's reaction rather amusing. He tore a page from his sketchbook and started drawing again. It took Olivia a long while to calm down. When she finally looked up, her face was still flushed, her cheeks bright red. Weren't we talking about the investment? Tell me about it, she said brusquely, trying to hide her embarrassment. Her eyes darted around, unable to meet Michael's gaze. Michael asked, puzzled, Tell you what? Well, I need to know how much money you need and what you plan to do with it, right? Olivia snapped. In reality, she didn't care about the details. Ever since she confirmed that the thoughts she heard from Michael were real, knowing he was from the future and also her future that, she hadn't cared. Besides, Michael had saved her grandfather. Even if this was just repayment, it didn't matter. Michael scratched his head helplessly with his pencil. So, you didn't hear a single word I said before, huh? But it doesn't matter. I've kind of changed my mind now anyway. Previously, Michael had planned to get the investment from Olivia, open an art studio program, take on fashion and jewelry design commissions, and essentially retrace his old path. But since this system activated, he'd realized there was another shortcut. However, he hadn't verified if that shortcut would work yet, so he decided not to tell Olivia for the time being. Let's talk after your family's turkey dinner. I won't tell you right now. Oh, Olivia could hear Michael's thoughts, but anything related to this system was blocked, like a filtered word. All she knew was that Michael mentioned a shortcut he needed to verify. You're only a sophomore right now. I think you should focus on your studies in high school, Olivia said tactfully. You can get into an Ivy League university, right? She wanted Michael to study hard and go to college in Boston. That way, at least, they'd be in the same city. Michael knew Olivia's original goal in high school had been Boston University, while his had been Jiangxing University. But later, for various reasons, neither ended up at their ideal school. Instead, they attended universities in the same northern city. Afraid Michael might misunderstand, Olivia explained. I'm not saying I want to back out or anything. I just think sophomore year is stressful enough. You probably don't have much time for other things. College will be better. You have a lot more free time in college. Almost everyone heard the line, study hard now, and college will be easy during high school, whether from teachers or parents. But it was bullshit. Whether college was easy depended entirely on the situation. Choose the wrong major, and every day felt like prepping for college entrance exams. Some majors were no less demanding than high school. The major Michael had studied before his rebirth was easy, but it was pointless if you couldn't find a job after graduation. He knew Olivia was concerned about him and smiled. All right, I know what I'm doing. Boston, I'll go. The Rhode Island School of Design he planned to apply to was near Boston. When they arrived at his place, Michael got ready to get out. Olivia muttered under her breath, Your house, is this close to school? Sounding slightly displeased. Michael ignored her comment, tore a page from his sketchbook, and handed it to Olivia. This is for you. What is it? Olivia took it, puzzled. She knew Michael had been drawing something since he got in the car. Initially, she thought he was working on math problems. Only now, as he gave it to her, did she realize that wasn't the case. She looked down and saw a drawing. It depicted her, looking mortified and shy from the earlier misunderstanding and jealousy over Emily. It was just a simple pencil sketch, yet it was incredibly lifelike, perfectly capturing the innocent beauty of her youth. Michael's drawing skills far exceeded her imagination. Olivia blushed instantly, then became furious with embarrassment. She raised the sketchbook as if to hit Michael with it. But Michael just laughed heartily, opened the car door, and bolted. She stared at the open door, the sketchbook still raised in her hand, ultimately unwilling to throw it. Slowly, she lowered her arm, hugging the sketchbook to her chest. A sweet smile unintentionally graced her lips. I'm back. Because he got a ride today, Michael arrived home earlier than usual. But as soon as he walked into the living room, he sensed something was wrong. Margaret Thompson was sitting on the sofa, gripping a feather duster, gritting her teeth with her arms practically squared off, a clear sign someone was in for it today. Looking over at Robert Thompson, he was cowering nearby, looking as meek and downcast as a scolded child. Michael took one look, put down his backpack, and immediately adopted a serious expression to lecture his old man. Dad, how many times have I told you? We need to be men who dote on our wives. Stop making Mom angry all the time. Come on, Mom, calm down. Do me a favor today. Let Dad off the hook this once, okay? Let's not hold it against him. As he tried to pat his mom's shoulder, Margaret Thompson glared at him. Just then, Robert Thompson's voice drifted faintly from behind him. Your mom isn't mad at me, and that feather duster isn't for me. What did that mean? There were only 3 people in the house. Michael immediately retracted the step he had just taken, maintaining a safe distance. Robert added, Michael, your mom found out about you wanting to apply to art school. Michael turned and ran. He hadn't even reached the door before Margaret Thompson grabbed him by the collar. Where do you think you're going? The tigress's voice roared, thick with anger. Michael's expression didn't change as he forced himself to remain calm. It's a big world out there, Mom. I want to see it. Dad, seriously? It hasn't even been half a day and you already spilled the beans? So much for the organization trusting you. Didn't you tell me to talk to your mom? I just brought it up gently, but she latched onto it and wouldn't let go, so I had to tell her the truth. In the living room, Michael Thompson and Robert Thompson sat talking quietly. Margaret Thompson rubbed her temples, looking clearly frustrated. After a moment, she finally opened her eyes and looked at Michael Thompson. Son, have you really thought this through? Her tone sounded a little softer. Michael Thompson nodded quickly. Mom, I really have. Oh, really? Margaret Thompson pressed her forehead, muttering something under her breath before asking hesitantly, Son, is the family putting too much pressure on you? Is that why you don't want to take the college entrance exam? She assumed Michael was buckling under the academic pressure and had developed anxiety about the college entrance exam, choosing the supposedly easier art school route instead. But Michael Thompson shook his head. No, Mom, this is what I really want to study. Applying to art school is still applying to college, and there are great art schools out there. I don't really understand all this, Margaret Thompson said sheepishly. Your dad and I didn't go far in school. She was torn. Truthfully, while Margaret Thompson seemed strict, she wasn't the type to force her opinions on her children. She respected Michael's choices. But she also cared about appearances. Her own son had the potential to get into a very good university. At the last parent-teacher conference, his teacher said that with hard work, he had a real shot at an Ivy League school. An Ivy League school, third best in the country. If he actually got in, she'd be over the moon. She'd want to shout it from the rooftops back in her hometown village, letting everyone know how successful her son was. But art school, would he even be able to find a job afterward? At that same conference, she'd gone with fourth Uncle Thompson's wife. Emily's homeroom teacher had said Emily's grades weren't good enough, that she probably wouldn't get into a regular college, and suggested to her aunt that they consider the art school route for Emily, since it was an easier path to get in. But her son's grades were good. Margaret was deeply conflicted. Seeing her hesitation, Michael quickly pressed his case. Mom, that's such an old-fashioned way to think. What's wrong with art school? Listening to her son, she thought, it actually seemed to make some sense. More importantly, Margaret watched Michael explaining everything so seriously, realizing how much effort he must have put into researching it all. This clearly wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision, but something he'd carefully thought through. She thought for a long time before finally reaching a decision. Tomorrow, I'll go to your school again and talk to your teacher. She wasn't educated herself, so she felt she had to rely on advice from those who were. This was about her child's future, after all, and Margaret wanted to be cautious. Although Michael didn't get an immediate yes from his mother, he knew she was softening, and he felt a surge of relief. Okay. Margaret patted his hand. This matter. Let's keep it within our immediate family for now. Don't tell the rest of the relatives yet, understand? I know. And you, she added, looking at Robert Thompson, don't have a few drinks and let it slip. I know, Robert Thompson mumbled. Margaret pushed the thoughts aside and stood up. All right, go get some sleep. The next day, dawn was just breaking. Michael Thompson trudged sleepily toward school, feeling like he was practically sleepwalking. He hadn't slept well. Jake Wilson, grabbing breakfast at the shop next to the school, spotted Michael and decided to mess with him. He snuck up behind Michael, raised his hand, and smacked him sharply on the butt. Michael, morning, ow. What the heck is that? It's so hard. Jake clutched his hand, blowing on it repeatedly, the pain almost bringing tears to his eyes. He stared at Michael in disbelief. Dude, what is that? Have you been practicing some kind of buns of steel technique? Get out of here. Serves you right, Michael said, grinning, then pulled something from his back pocket. This thing, it was a stone seal. Jake took it, turning it over. Michael, what are you doing carrying this around at school? Just messing around with it. Michael pointed to the seal Jake was handling carelessly. Hey, be careful with that. The stone alone is worth over $300. You break it, you buy it. Jake quickly steadied it in his hand, held it carefully, and gave it back to Michael. Michael was lying, of course. The seal was just a scrap piece of stone Robert Thompson had found at his fourth uncle's workshop and given to Michael to practice carving on. The wholesale price for practice stone like that was maybe $2. Robert Thompson had promised to teach Michael how to carve stone. So, the previous night, after Margaret had gone to sleep, he'd secretly stayed up with Michael, practicing by lamplight in the downstairs living room. As a result, Michael had gotten carried away and stayed up too late, hence the sleepiness now. The stone carving practice started with basic engraving techniques. Robert wasn't particularly skilled at seals or fine engraving himself. His strength lay in carving flowers, birds, and landscapes, and he specialized in larger sculptures. His fourth uncle, however, did make seals, which was where the practice stone came from. Plus, Robert had never trained apprentices before, while his fourth uncle had plenty of experience. Robert figured if Michael showed real talent, maybe he should start by learning seal carving from his uncle. Still, Michael thought, after learning some engraving from Dad yesterday, more stone carving and engraving lessons popped up in the dream training class. I could just learn there from now on and not be exhausted all day. With that thought, he headed into the school building alongside Jake, who was finishing his breakfast bun. However, as they reached the school plaza, they were drawn by a commotion. A crowd had gathered in the plaza, all looking up at something. Naturally curious, Michael wanted to see what was going on too. But before he could get closer, Jake pointed towards the center of the crowd. Hey, isn't that Libby Sullivan from our class? Sis, help me out just this once. Leave me alone. At the school plaza, Olivia Sullivan impatiently shook off a man's hand. The man pestering her looked to be about 20, with a thin build. He had dark circles under his eyes and looked like he'd been run ragged by drinking and women. He'd dyed his hair bright yellow and wore earrings, giving him a punkish, trying too hard look. This was Olivia Sullivan's older brother, Ethan Sullivan. Although they shared the same mother, the siblings had completely different personalities. Olivia Sullivan had been serious and meticulous since childhood, always the perfect child everyone else's parents wished they had. Ethan Sullivan was the opposite, a master troublemaker. Even the Sullivan family thought he was a lost cause. He had two hobbies, chasing women and gambling. Right now, Ethan Sullivan was deep in gambling debt, owing a hefty sum to loan sharks. He didn't dare tell the Sullivan family, so in desperation, he turned to his sister. "Sis, just help me out this once. I'm your own brother." Ethan Sullivan grabbed Olivia Sullivan, refusing to let her go. "Those guys said if I don't pay up today, they'll chop off my hands. It hurts. Let go." Olivia Sullivan tried to pull her hand back, but even though Ethan Sullivan was worn out from his lifestyle, he was still a grown man. Her petite frame was no match for his strength. Seeing more and more people gathering at the plaza, she was both embarrassed and angry, so upset that tears welled up in her eyes. Ethan Sullivan, however, wasn't intimidated. Seeing the crowd, he actually smirked. "Sis, quite the audience, huh? You must be embarrassed. Maybe some of your classmates are here. If this gets around school, you'll lose face completely. Give me some money, and I'll leave right now." "I don't have any money." "You're lying. You think I don't know how much money you've saved up over the years? Give me $300,000, and I'll leave immediately." $300,000? Are you crazy? If you don't give it to me, you're not going anywhere today. Forget about going to class. We'll see who ends up embarrassed. Ethan Sullivan had completely thrown away any sense of shame. He was truly desperate. He was truly desperate. The person he'd borrowed from this time wasn't someone to mess with. If he couldn't pay, even if they didn't chop off his hands, they'd definitely go to the Sullivan family, straight to Mr. Sullivan himself for the money. He'd be in deep trouble then. As for borrowing from friends, his usual gang of hangers-on had vanished before he could even ask. He was out of options and could only think of hitting up his own sister. Ethan Sullivan knew his sister had money. From childhood onward, the holiday money from aunts and uncles every year must have added up to nearly $1 million. His sister had always saved it herself, and she wasn't a spender, so the money must still be there. Ethan Sullivan wouldn't give up until he got the money today, but he also didn't dare cause too big a scene at the school plaza. If the school found out later and notified the Sullivan family, he'd be finished. So he grabbed Olivia Sullivan and started dragging her toward his car. "Let go of me," Olivia Sullivan finally cried out, struggling desperately. She looked around for help, but no one dared to intervene. But just as Ethan Sullivan pulled the car door open, a rock suddenly flew through the air and hit him square on the forehead. "Ah!" He cried out in pain, clutching his forehead and grimacing. When he looked at his hand again, his forehead was cut open, and his hand was covered in blood. Ethan Sullivan's eyes immediately turned red. He looked up, ready to curse. Which son of a bitch is asking for it? What a waste of my $300 stone. Just then, someone walked out from the crowd, the heavier-set guy, behind him, still looking shaken. Through her tear-blurred vision, Olivia Sullivan couldn't help but widen her eyes when she saw the person walking towards her. Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson glanced at the practice seal, lying shattered in pieces on the ground, tooted twice, then walked up to Ethan Sullivan, looking him up and down. Of course, he knew Ethan Sullivan, his brother-in-law. After all, the two of them had quite a history, and not a good one. In his past life, Olivia Sullivan had ultimately given up her beloved Boston University and run off to the north to attend some mediocre university. While it wasn't entirely Ethan Sullivan's fault, he certainly deserved a large share of the credit. What kind of person was Ethan Sullivan? One word summed him up perfectly: scum. Looking at all the weirdos in the Sullivan family, this guy was the cream of the crop. But Michael Thompson hadn't ultimately lost out. In his previous life, he'd personally sent Ethan Sullivan to prison. Seeing Ethan Sullivan again now, Michael Thompson wasn't angry. Instead, a relieved smile spread across his face. He hadn't gotten to beat Ethan Sullivan up enough in his past life, but he could get his wish this time around. When Ethan Sullivan saw a high school kid step forward, the same one who just hit him with a rock, he nearly exploded with anger. "You little punk, do you know who I am?" Slap. Before he could finish, a hard slap landed across his face. Ethan Sullivan was stunned by the slap. How could he be so direct right off the bat? He looked at Michael Thompson, his eyes full of disbelief. "You slap? You what? I slap? I what? You son of a bitch. Slap. Why the foul language? Don't you have any manners?" Beside them, Olivia Sullivan's eyes widened as she watched her brother get slapped repeatedly. For a moment, she forgot to cry. Her pupils reflected only Michael Thompson's figure standing protectively in front of her, shining brightly. Ethan Sullivan was about to cry. Couldn't he let a guy finish a sentence? Was there no reasoning with him? He'd never been wronged like this in his life. Even my dad never hit me like this. I'll fight you. Ethan Sullivan reached out to grab Michael Thompson's face, trying to scratch him. Despite his gangster appearance, Ethan Sullivan was actually terrible at fighting. After all, he was weak, and his lunge was more like a woman trying to scratch someone's face. Before Michael Thompson could even react, Jake Wilson behind him roared, "Michael, I got your back." Jake Wilson kicked Ethan Sullivan, who was lunging at Michael Thompson, sending him stumbling back against the car. He still hadn't quite figured out what was going on. He didn't know why Michael Thompson had suddenly started hitting someone, nor did he even know who was being hit. He only knew that Michael Thompson was in a fight, and Jake Wilson had always been the type to back his friends, right or wrong. When his good buddy was fighting, he'd jump in first and ask questions later. It was precisely because of this loyalty that Michael Thompson's friendship with him had lasted the longest. Michael Thompson was touched. Good brother. He didn't hold back, taking advantage of Jake Wilson's kick to rush forward and grab Ethan Sullivan by the collar. Ethan Sullivan, still craning his neck, cursed, "Kid, I'll remember your face. You're dead." Michael Thompson suddenly leaned down and whispered in his ear, "You stole Mr. Sullivan's family heirloom. You really think Mr. Sullivan doesn't know?" Those words instantly made Ethan Sullivan shut his mouth. He stared wide-eyed, looking at Michael Thompson in disbelief. How could he possibly know about that? This son of a bitch, Michael Thompson thought. I wasn't even looking for you, and you show up here? How dare you lay a hand on a woman I cherish so much? In that moment, all the colors seemed to drain from Olivia Sullivan's world, leaving only Michael Thompson in sharp focus. A woman I cherish so much. A woman I cherish so much. The phrase echoed in her mind, drowning out everything else. The heartache and sadness brought on by Ethan Sullivan's unreasonable tantrum gradually faded, replaced by a warm, rosy feeling. She cupped her face, her delicate cheeks burning as if they might melt. She felt both bashful and overjoyed. But soon, worry filled her heart again. Olivia Sullivan worried about Michael Thompson. She knew what kind of person her brother was. Now that Michael Thompson had hit him, Ethan would definitely never let it go. That bastard was capable of anything. I have to do something. She looked up worriedly, only to witness a scene that left her utterly stunned. Michael Thompson pointed at the shattered stone on the ground. Ethan Sullivan, his face dark, silently pulled out his wallet, reluctantly counted out a few dollar bills, and handed them to Michael Thompson. Olivia Sullivan stared, dumbfounded. What was going on? A few minutes earlier, after Michael Thompson whispered that sentence in Ethan Sullivan's ear, Ethan broke out in a cold sweat. He had previously stolen a family heirloom from home, a cherished treasure belonging to old Mr. Arthur Sullivan, and sold it to pay off gambling debts. But Ethan had done it alone, replacing it with a fake. Absolutely no one else could possibly know. Could Grandpa have found out the family heirloom was replaced with a fake? Even so, how did this student in front of him know? Who is this guy? Ethan's mind raced. Old Mr. Sullivan would never mention something like this to ordinary people, not even family members. He'd only confide in his closest old friends. Could this kid be from one of those families? Considering how Michael Thompson had stood up for Olivia Sullivan, Ethan's imagination ran even wilder. It suddenly occurred to him. What if the old man was secretly planning to make Olivia Sullivan his successor, and this guy knew about it, and was pursuing his sister? It actually seemed possible. After all, his sister was the most promising one in the Sullivan family, practically guaranteed to get into an Ivy League university. She was mature, too, and Grandpa had always favored her. This made Michael Thompson's background seem even more likely. The more Ethan thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Just then, Michael Thompson spoke again. That money you owe the loan sharks? You think they're just going to wait for you to pay them back? They don't believe you can anyway. Why don't you go home right now and see if the loan sharks aren't having tea with old Mr. Sullivan? Ethan's face turned deathly pale. He scrambled to get in his car and head home. If what this guy said was true, he was dead meat, the kind even Jesus couldn't save. Hold on. Just as Ethan was about to leave, Michael Thompson grabbed his shoulder. Ethan looked at him, fear flickering in his eyes, and swallowed hard. What do you want now? He suddenly felt a growing fear of this boy who was clearly younger than him. Michael Thompson pointed to the ground, where the seal he'd thrown had shattered into several pieces. $300. What? 300? Playing dumb? I just bought this seal. $300. Ethan almost choked. Didn't you break it hitting me over the head? And now you want me to pay for it? Even I've never been this shameless. But he forced himself to swallow his anger. This wasn't the time to argue with this guy. He needed to get home. Ethan reluctantly took the money out of his wallet, handed it to Michael Thompson, then hurriedly got into his car and sped off, leaving a cloud of dust. And so, the farce finally came to an end. Michael Thompson gleefully stuffed the cash into his pocket, then walked over to the stunned Olivia Sullivan. He pulled a pack of tissues from his pocket, took one out, and casually dabbed at her face. Wipe your face. You were crying so hard, you got snotty. Olivia Sullivan immediately blushed, turned away awkwardly, and blew her nose. Just then, a school security guard came running over, shouting, "Hey, you over there? What was going on? What class are you in?" "Crap," Michael Thompson yelled to Jake Wilson. "Jake, trouble, let's scram." He grabbed Olivia Sullivan's hand and pulled her into a run. Olivia stared blankly at him, letting him lead her by the hand as he ran ahead, while she simply followed in his steps. Ding dong, the school bell rang for class. The sound of students' morning reading echoed through the school buildings. Outside, in the school plaza, Michael Thompson sat on the edge of a flower bed, eating an ice cream bar. Beside him, Olivia Sullivan sat close, occasionally stealing glances at him before quickly lowering her head, blushing. "Well, I know I'm the type girls tend to like," he said, turning to look at her with a smile. "But you keep sneaking looks at me. It's making me a little embarrassed. Just look openly if you want." Olivia realized Michael Thompson hadn't missed her subtle glances. Embarrassed and annoyed, she lightly punched his arm and muttered, "You're shameless." "Hey, Olivia, watch your words," Michael Thompson protested. "After all, I did just help you out of jam. Not even a thank you." "I'm not thanking you." "Ah, such a heartless woman." "But," Olivia stood up, walked in front of Michael Thompson, put her hands behind her back, and said shyly, "If you can get into an Ivy League university, I have a gift for you." She didn't want to date in high school, but college. Michael Thompson rolled his eyes and went back to licking his ice cream bar. "Why don't you just say you're not giving me anything?" Olivia immediately got flustered, grabbing Michael Thompson's shoulders and shaking him gently. "Can't you have some ambition? Let's work hard together. I'll help you. I'll study with you." Setting Kyoto University as the goal was her way of motivating Michael Thompson. Actually, getting into any university in Kyoto would be fine, but she couldn't let Michael Thompson slack off. After all, he was her future. Unfortunately, Michael Thompson wasn't buying it. "Well, sorry to disappoint you." Michael Thompson took a bite of his ice cream bar and scoffed. "I'm not planning on taking the regular university entrance exams anymore. I'm going for the art school entrance exams. I'm aiming for Rhode Island School of Design, so I won't be able to join you at Kyoto University." Olivia Sullivan was very surprised, but thinking about Michael Thompson's talent for drawing kind of made sense. He must really love it. RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, that's not bad either. It's a good school, and it's also in Kyoto. Olivia was about to nod when she suddenly realized something and gasped. "Doesn't that mean you'll have to switch classes? Students on the art track study different things than those on the regular academic track. So, if Michael Thompson switched to the art track, he wouldn't be able to stay in their current class. That meant he and Olivia Sullivan wouldn't be classmates anymore. Their classrooms wouldn't even be in the same building." Michael Thompson teased, "What? Gonna miss me, Olivia?" Who'd miss you?" Olivia Sullivan turned away, trying to sound tough. "What class you're in has nothing to do with me." But her tone was a little annoyed, and she lightly bit her lip. She wagged a finger. But look, we're already sophomores, and the first semester is almost over. If you switch classes now, won't you fall behind? Maybe you should just forget about it. I already know the stuff the art students need to learn, and my grades in the regular subjects are fine. I've already convinced my family, and convincing the school shouldn't be hard." Michael Thompson had made up his mind and naturally had his reasons. Olivia Sullivan suddenly got angry and stomped her foot. "Fine, do whatever you want. I'm going back to class." "Hey, wait up. Let's go back together." Michael Thompson quickly finished his ice cream bar, tossed the wrapper in a nearby trash can, and jogged to catch up with Olivia Sullivan. On the way back to the classroom, Olivia had planned to give Michael Thompson the silent treatment out of spite. But then Michael Thompson actually didn't talk to her either, which made her even angrier. They timed their return to the classroom for the morning reading period, planning to get back just before first period started. The teacher wasn't always in the room during morning reading, just checking occasionally, so skipping wasn't a huge deal as long as your desk mate covered for you by saying, "He went to the restroom." But as they were heading toward the classroom for Honors Class A and past the faculty office, they saw Jake Wilson standing punishment in the hallway outside. Jake Wilson winked and made faces at him, then nudged his chin towards the empty spot next to him. Michael Thompson. Looks like Jake Wilson hadn't escaped the dean's pursuit and had been caught red-handed. If Jake was caught, Michael probably couldn't escape either. Hadn't Jake already saved him a spot right there? See? Michael Thompson ran a hand through his hair and walked resignedly into the faculty office. Michael Thompson's homeroom teacher, Mr. Wilson, was a short man in his 40s who taught physics for sections A and B. Mr. Wilson was sitting at his desk, arms crossed, looking none too pleased at a student standing before him. Michael Thompson, explain yourself. Michael Thompson raised his hand formally. Reporting, sir. I believe my actions were merely helping a fellow student to the best of my ability. I don't require any special commendation from the school. It would only make me conceited. You little rascal. Honestly. Mr. Wilson glared, picking up the lesson plan from his desk, as if he were about to hit Michael Thompson. Of course, it was just for show. Mr. Wilson slammed the lesson plan down on the desk, hitting someone in front of all those people, and then running off right after. Did you think the security cameras at the school gate are just decorations? The dean checked them and came straight to me. Michael Thompson gave him an odd look. Sir, if there are cameras, couldn't you see I was just coming to someone's aid? Hitting someone is still wrong. So I should have just stood there and watched. Olivia Sullivan is my classmate. Weren't you the one who taught us to be friendly and stick together? Was it really because Olivia Sullivan is your classmate? You just saw she was pretty and you were thirsty or whatever. Mr. Wilson's words made Michael Thompson think his next sentence would be, you degenerate. But the old teacher had too much professional integrity. He wouldn't easily curse in front of a student. Mr. Wilson said, his expression unhappy. At the very least, you could have told a teacher and let us handle it. It was urgent. Call your parents. Have them come down here. Sir, no need to call. My mom should already be on her way, Michael Thompson said with an embarrassed grin. Didn't you ask my parents to come to the school last week? Mr. Wilson. What? You sound proud of that? He rubbed his forehead, looking exasperated, and pointed outside the office. Skip your morning classes. Go stand outside. Michael Thompson came out of the office and went to join Jake Wilson outside. Michael, Jake Wilson whispered. Don't blame Mr. Wilson. You should have seen him before you got here. He got into a huge argument with the dean for us. He was really sticking up for you, looked totally cool doing it. I was so moved, I decided I'm not going to sleep through his physics class anymore. I know. Michael Thompson knew, of course, that Mr. Wilson had gone easy on them. Calling parents was mostly just a lecture, nothing more serious. Under normal circumstances, fighting at Oakwood High School would earn you more than that, an official demerit, or even suspension for serious cases. Mr. Wilson might seem like a strict, stubborn old guy, but he was genuinely a good teacher worthy of respect. Michael Thompson appreciated what he'd done. Michael Thompson and Jake Wilson stood punishment outside the office for a whole class period. During that time, Olivia Sullivan came by. She went into the office. It wasn't clear what she said to Mr. Wilson, but came out again quickly. Are you thirsty? She whispered to Michael Thompson as she came out of the office. Michael Thompson shook his head. Jake Wilson's eyes practically lit up. Hey, I'm thirsty. Can you bring me a bottle of water? Olivia Sullivan agreed. But when she came back, she had brought water from Michael Thompson too. Jake Wilson looked down at the Nongfu spring water in his hand, then at the Horizon organic milk in Michael Thompson's hand, then watched Olivia Sullivan already jogging away. He twisted the cap off his water bottle and took a sip. Yep, tasted like bitter third-wheeling. Margaret Thompson arrived at the school during the second period. When she saw her son standing punishment outside the teacher's office, with that chubby kid from the Wilson family next to him, her expression was one of utter surprise. After Margaret Thompson went into the office, a little while later, they heard Mr. Wilson inside telling Jake Wilson to go back to class and calling Michael Thompson in. As soon as Michael Thompson entered the office, he saw his mom deep in enthusiastic conversation with his homeroom teacher. Oh, Mr. Wilson, what a coincidence meeting you like this. You know, back home, our families might even know each other. When we get home, I'll have Michael Thompson's grandmother look through the family genealogy records. Who knows? Maybe our families are related somehow. Is your wife from Fonyang Village too? Hey, what a coincidence. Michael Thompson's father's family is originally from Fonyang Village. What's your wife's name? Maybe they even know each other. She chatted on enthusiastically, but listening to her, it seemed completely unrelated to Michael Thompson's current situation. Mr. Wilson clearly couldn't keep up with Margaret Thompson's overly familiar and talkative nature. When he saw Michael Thompson, it was like seeing his savior. Michael Thompson, come over here, come over here. Michael, Margaret Thompson tells me you want to transfer to the art program? Yes, sir. The first semester of sophomore year is almost over. Is this sudden decision to switch classes just a whim? No, sir. I've given it serious thought. Is it because you feel the academic pressure is too much? Sir, that's really not it. After Mr. Wilson let Michael in, he didn't even mention last week's incident or the earlier fight. He focused entirely on Michael's request to switch classes. His initial thought was similar to Margaret Thompson's. They both assumed Michael wanted to go into the art program because the academic pressure was too intense. Otherwise, why didn't Michael bring it up when classes were assigned at the start of sophomore year? Now, halfway through sophomore year, he suddenly brings this up. Mr. Wilson worried Michael was being impulsive, potentially jeopardizing his future on a whim, and he was also concerned that transferring now might make it hard for Michael to catch up with the art class curriculum. But Michael was as resolute as ever, completely unswayed. In the end, Mr. Wilson had no choice but to agree to let Michael try the art class for 2 weeks to see how it went. If Michael changed his mind, he could return to Honors Class A. He even tried to reassure Margaret Thompson, saying, "Our school's art program also emphasizes academics. 2 weeks in the art class won't affect Michael's studies much. If the boy has his mind set on it, it's okay to let him try." Margaret Thompson didn't know much about these things, so she just nodded along with whatever the teacher said. "All right, Mr. Wilson, I trust your judgment. Let's let him give it a try." After leaving the faculty office, Michael walked his mom out of the school plaza. On the way, Margaret Thompson lowered her voice. "Your teacher mentioned you got into a fight? Watch your wording. It was stepping up for someone." Michael corrected her. "Oh, please," Margaret Thompson grumbled. "That teacher of yours, actually defending you. Does helping a classmate mean you can just start punching people? What if something serious happened? Can the school even take responsibility? No matter how justified the reason, getting punched still hurts, doesn't it?" Then she asked quietly, "Did you get hurt?" Michael grinned. "Are you kidding? Whose son do you think I am?" Margaret Thompson laughed, then scolded, "Don't let it happen again. If you get into another fight, don't even bother coming home, or you'll be grounded for life." "All right, Mom, I got it." "Okay, hurry back to class. Mom's leaving now." If Margaret Thompson had been truly angry, she wouldn't have been so lenient. Clearly, she wasn't really blaming her son. Deep down, she might have even felt he did the right thing, even if she couldn't condone the fighting itself. Still, Michael was quite surprised that Mr. Wilson had defended him in front of his mom. For this problem, we need to pay attention to the spatial structure of this compound. Chemistry class was underway in Honors Class A, with the teacher explaining a test paper. Claire Evans was listening intently, but when she glanced back, her desk mate, Olivia Sullivan, seemed distracted. Although Olivia held the test paper, her eyes kept drifting towards the back of the room. At the end of their row, Jake Wilson was asleep on his desk, and the seat next to him was empty. Claire Evans remembered that seat. It was Michael's, right? The tall, kind of cute guy. Was he absent today? Claire Evans didn't know what had happened at the school plaza. She just assumed Michael was out sick. She looked again at Olivia Sullivan's test paper. It was still open to the first page, even though the teacher was already explaining problems on page 3. "Olivia, turn the page," Claire Evans whispered. Olivia Sullivan snapped back as if waking from a dream and pretended nonchalantly to flip her paper to the same page as Claire. Claire Evans found it unbelievable. She and Olivia Sullivan had been desk mates for 2 years, and she'd never seen Olivia zone out during class before. In her memory, Olivia Sullivan was always the most focused student, listening attentively and taking notes, never letting her mind wander. But today, Olivia seemed preoccupied, completely unable to concentrate on the lesson. And why did Olivia keep looking at Michael's seat? Could it be? No way. Olivia had never shown interest in any guy before. Plenty of boys at school had pursued her, even guys from different grades had sent her love letters, but she'd never paid them any attention. Michael was kind of cute, sure, and their dorm mate Lily Carter seemed interested in him, but he couldn't possibly be that important to Olivia, could he? After all, both she and Olivia had been classmates with Michael since the start of high school, for over 2 years now. As Olivia Sullivan's best friend, the kind who even went to the restroom together, Claire Evans was certain that Michael and Olivia had barely interacted in all that time, hardly even exchanging a few words. Maybe Olivia wasn't looking at Michael, but at Jake Wilson? The absurd thought had barely formed in Claire Evans's mind before she shook her head, dismissing it. Impossible. Claire Evans's curiosity was getting the better of her. She decided to ask her best friend directly, "Olivia, why do you keep looking at Michael's seat?" It was meant as a simple question, but unexpectedly, Olivia Sullivan's reaction was huge. "I wasn't." Caught off guard, Olivia Sullivan blurted out the denial instinctively, her thoughts scattering. Naturally, the entire class turned to look at them in surprise. The chemistry teacher at the front cleared his throat. Save your conversation for after class. Please be quiet during the lesson. Olivia Sullivan and Claire Evans both shut their mouths, not daring to speak again. But seeing Olivia Sullivan blushing and looking down, Claire Evans's interest was piqued. She scribbled a line in her notebook, nudged Olivia Sullivan with her elbow, and slid the notebook over. Olivia Sullivan pretended to listen intently, but her eyes couldn't help darting towards the notebook. Olivia, Lily Carter told me she saw Michael getting into your car yesterday. She saw. Olivia felt a pang of annoyance and quickly scribbled back in the notebook. I just gave him a ride since we were going the same way. We're classmates, after all. Same way? Don't you live downtown? Those are opposite directions. I went to a relative's house yesterday, so it was on the way. She drew the exclamation point forcefully, as if to emphasize the credibility of her claim. Claire Evans pursed her lips, unclear whether she didn't believe it or was just pretending to. But she didn't press the issue. Instead, she wrote another sentence in the notebook. After Lily Carter saw you yesterday, she asked me to ask you, do you like Michael? If it's just a misunderstanding, she's planning to confess her feelings to him. Olivia Sullivan's face froze instantly. The pen in her hand hovered midair, unable to move. Someone was going to confess to Michael. Olivia Sullivan stared at the words Claire Evans had scribbled in her notebook, her mind going completely blank. Like him or not? She didn't know how to answer. Images flooded her mind unbidden. Eating with Michael the other day, when he peeled an egg for her, Michael grabbing her hand as they ran off together. The two of them sitting on the planter outside the snack shop, eating ice cream and chatting. Then, the girl in her mind's eye changed into someone else. Crack! The pen in her hand fractured under the pressure. A sour feeling churned in her stomach. Just as Olivia was grappling for an answer, she suddenly noticed the homeroom teacher, Mr. Wilson, leading Michael back into the classroom. Mr. Wilson called the chemistry teacher out into the hall. They spoke briefly. Michael, meanwhile, returned to his seat and started packing his things. The noise of him gathering his belongings woke Jake Wilson, who had been sneaking a nap nearby. Seeing Michael packing, Jake immediately got worked up. Michael, old Mr. Wilson didn't actually suspend you, did he? That's harsh. Michael kept packing. What are you talking about? I'm switching classes. Switching classes? Yeah, to the art studio program. Jake stared at him, astonished. Michael just smiled. It's complicated. I'll tell you later. After stuffing everything into his backpack, Michael slung it over his shoulder and followed Mr. Wilson out of the room. As Michael passed Olivia's desk, she felt an urge to reach out, to grab the hem of his shirt. But it was only a thought. She did nothing, just watched Michael leave the classroom with Mr. Wilson, carrying a pile of books in his backpack. The murmur of their conversation drifted back from the hallway. The realization that she wouldn't see Michael in class anymore, that they wouldn't even be in the same building, left an indescribable knot in Olivia's stomach. Claire Evans asked, looking surprised, "What's going on with Michael?" "He switched classes." "Switched? Isn't our class the top honors class? His grades aren't bad enough to get kicked down to a regular class, are they? The placement exams were ages ago. He's going to the art studio program. He wants to study art." Claire gave Olivia a strange look, noticing her crestfallen expression and the slightly sharp tone she'd used, clearly not directed at her. Who it was directed, it seemed obvious. Maybe I should talk to Lily Carter when we get back to the dorm? Claire thought. No, more like console her. My roommate doesn't stand a chance. You'll be in this class from now on. I've already spoken with their homeroom teacher, Laura Gibson. Mr. Wilson explained, having led Michael to a different academic building. Oakwood High School's art studio program had only 2 classes, both housed in this building. Michael had been here before for art electives, so the place wasn't unfamiliar. When they arrived, the art class was in the middle of a studio session. Students were clustered around easels, sketching a still life set up in the center of the room. Laura Gibson, the teacher Mr. Wilson mentioned, was a young woman, maybe around 30, wearing glasses that gave her a quiet, scholarly air. She was quite pretty. Michael recognized her. She had taught one of his previous art classes. He waved casually. "Hey, Ms. Evans." "You little rascal," she replied, though not unkindly. "You're supposed to call me Ms. Gibson, you know." "Got it, Ms. Evans." Ms. Gibson shot him an exasperated look before turning back to Mr. Wilson. She wasn't standoffish, perhaps because she was younger. She usually got along well with the students and didn't mind Michael's playful address. "Don't worry, Mr. Wilson," she assured him after they spoke for a few moments. "I'll take good care of him, Ms. Gibson then led Michael into the studio, pointing to an empty spot in the corner. "Michael, you can sit there for now. Since it's your first day, just watch the others draw. You can move your things into the regular classroom after class." Okay. Sophomore year in the art studio program still involved mostly academic subjects, with specialized art classes taking up only a day or two each week. Intensive art study wouldn't begin until the summer break before junior year and continue into the first half of junior year. So, the art students did have a regular classroom for their other subjects. They were just in the art studio for this period. Since it was his first day, Ms. Gibson didn't expect Michael to start drawing immediately. Just observe. The guy next to him was currently scratching his head, staring miserably at his drawing paper. Hoping to make friends, Michael leaned over, glanced at the paper, and pointed. "Hey man, nice job on the buddy." The guy gave him a mournful look. "That's a chair." Abstract. Very deep, full of artistic flair. But at least this gourd here. "Those are 2 apples. How about you buy me a soda later, and I'll fix this for you." The guy eyed him skeptically. "Are you any good?" "If I'm not, I'll buy you a soda." "All right, deal. Be my guest." The guy readily slid over, handing Michael his sketching pencil. Michael didn't hesitate. He took the pencil, sat down at the easel, put the guy's postmodern abstract masterpiece aside, and clipped a fresh sheet of paper to the board. After smoothing it out, he studied the subject. A simple fruit bowl on a table, filled with common fruits like apples, bananas, and pears. Ms. Evans sat near the table, looking at her phone, seemingly texting someone. Michael held up his pencil, sizing up the proportions, then began sketching on the paper with relaxed confidence. Ding dong, ding dong. The bell rang soon after. The students in the art studio turned in their work and gradually filed out. Michael gathered his books to head to the new classroom when the guy whose drawing he'd offered to fix approached him, looking thrilled. "Dude, that was amazing. Seriously. What's your name?" "I'm Travis Miller. Let's be friends." "Michael, don't forget the soda." Definitely, definitely. We're bros now." Travis Miller was naturally friendly and happily took half of Michael's books, heading to the classroom with him. Back in the art studio, Ms. Gibson was tidying up the drawings the students had submitted. Her phone, left on the table, buzzed. She picked it up and read the message. "Gibson, it's really not what you think. There's nothing going on between me and her." Ms. Gibson sighed heavily, her expression momentarily clouded with sadness. Bad luck, she thought. Picked another jerk. Shaking it off, she gathered the submitted sketches and began flipping through them casually. As she looked, her brow furrowed. What is all this? The student work was frankly painful to look at. Even the simplest still life drawings were mostly indecipherable messes. A few were passable, but most were failures. And they'd been at this for a whole semester. Then, her flipping stopped abruptly. Her mouth fell slightly open in surprise. Before her lay a pencil sketch. It depicted a classroom scene, fruit arranged on a table, a woman leaning against it, gazing at her phone with a face full of worry and unspoken sorrow. Using only a pencil, the artist had captured striking light and shadow, rendering the expression on the woman's face lifelike. Even looking at the drawing, one could sense the subject's inner turmoil. "Is that me?" Ms. Gibson stared at the drawing for a long moment before her eyes drifted down to the signature in the corner. She murmured the name softly. Travis Miller. Michael Thompson quickly fit into his new class, making his first friend, Travis Miller at least. Travis was a bit carefree and straightforward, maybe a little naive, but definitely enthusiastic. From him, Michael found out a lot about the art studio program, like the names of their classmates and how classes usually ran. The art studio program mostly had regular academic classes, but during the evening study hall, they'd go to the art studio to practice drawing. They had 3 specialized art classes per week, each taking up a full morning or afternoon. In the new classroom, Michael sat in the back row because he was tall, right behind Travis Miller. The day's classes passed quickly. The academic pace in the art studio program wasn't as fast as Michael's previous honors class. Today's lessons covered material he'd already learned. After evening study hall ended, Michael planned to meet his sister, Emily Thompson, at her classroom and walk home together. But just as he stepped out of the art studio program building, he saw Olivia Sullivan standing by the entrance, backpack on. At first, Michael didn't even realize Olivia was waiting for him. He thought she was there for some other reason. But as soon as Olivia saw him, she hurried over. "Michael Thompson." Michael looked quizzically at Olivia, who had run up to him. "Olivia? What's up?" That is, are you heading home now?" She looked down, nervously clutching the straps of her backpack, hesitating. Michael nodded. "What a coincidence, I'm going home too." Michael thought, isn't that obvious? Study hall's over. Neither of us boards here. Where else would we go? Olivia placed a hand on her chest, took a deep breath, and finally mustered the courage to say, you should come back with me. Michael waved his hands frantically. No, no, no. I mean, I wouldn't mind living with you, but I'm pretty sure your parents would. Olivia froze for a second before realizing the ambiguity in her words, flushing with embarrassment and annoyance. What are you thinking? I mean, I'll walk you home. There's no need. It's not on your way. But. A hint of anxiety crossed her face. She glanced around, pulled Michael aside, and whispered, you beat up Ethan Sullivan today. I'm worried he'll cause trouble for you. Michael looked at her. Her eyes were full of concern, clearly afraid that he'd get into trouble for helping her. A warmth spread through him, but he smiled. Don't worry about it. Ethan Sullivan getting revenge on me? Michael thought privately. He probably doesn't have time for me right now. I bet he's got his hands full. Olivia heard Michael's thoughts. Although she didn't understand where his confidence came from, she couldn't help but worry. Ethan Sullivan was her own brother. She knew exactly what kind of person he was. Calling him vindictive was putting it mildly. He held grudges over the smallest things. Michael had beaten him up in front of so many people today. How could Ethan possibly let it go? Besides, she and Michael weren't in the same class anymore. If they could walk home together, at least they could see each other every day. Besides, your home isn't on my way. It's too much trouble. If there's nothing else, I should get going. Michael was about to wave goodbye to Olivia, but as he turned to leave, she grabbed his hand tightly. Her two small hands held his larger one, refusing to let go. Michael froze, staring at her hands for a long moment before looking up at her face. Under his gaze, Olivia lowered her head shyly, mumbling softly, I'm worried. Just let me walk you home. But she still didn't release his hand. Seeing her insistence, Michael had no choice but to agree. All right. Olivia beamed, a happy smile spreading across her face. Michael leaned closer and whispered, but could you let go of my hand first? I think the dean upstairs noticed us. Only then did Olivia realize she was still clutching Michael's hand. She blushed and quickly let go. From a second floor above, the dean's stern voice echoed. You two students down there, what class are you in? Run. Michael grabbed Olivia's hand and bolted. This was the second time today Olivia had been pulled along in a run by Michael. They didn't stop until they reached the school plaza. Olivia wasn't very athletic and was completely exhausted, bending over with her hands on her knees, panting heavily. Michael, in contrast, was perfectly composed, standing beside her without being flushed or out of breath. He even chuckled, Olivia, you're really out of shape. Olivia didn't have the energy to argue, merely shooting him an irritated glare. Her ride was early today and already waiting at the school plaza. Olivia got into the car first, but the door was still open. She saw Michael staring towards the school gate, not getting in. What's wrong? She asked. HM? Oh, nothing. Michael looked away. He thought he'd seen a former classmate, but didn't pay it much mind and got into Olivia's car. After they drove off, two female students at the school plaza watched the car leave. Claire Evans, holding a drink and chewing on the straw, said to the girl beside her, See? I told you there was something going on between them. Michael takes Olivia's car home every day. Gossip Queen, don't go telling Lily Carter, okay? Let's just pretend we don't know. The heavier girl, nicknamed Gossip Queen, also a boarding student from honors class, living in the same dorm as Claire and Lily, looked displeased at Claire's reminder. I know, don't you trust me? My lips are the tightest in our class. Let's go back to the dorm. I can't wait. To keep this secret. Claire found this amusing. She didn't believe for a second that Gossip Queen could keep a secret. Nicknames stick for a reason. If she didn't think Gossip Queen would spill, she wouldn't have secretly brought her here to watch in the first place. Oh well, what could she do? She was Olivia's best friend, after all. Claire had to look out for her bestie in her own way. Sitting in the car, Olivia had no idea what her best friend was doing for her behind the scenes. She looked at Michael and couldn't help asking, Michael, what exactly did you say to Ethan Sullivan today? He just left like that. This question had been bothering her all day. She had seen Michael say something to Ethan, after which Ethan's expression changed drastically, and he drove off without another word. I just told him his behavior was wrong and gave him a good lecture. Michael naturally didn't tell the truth. Before his rebirth, he had investigated the Sullivan family extensively in order to deal with them. And the most crucial target, of course, was his own future brother-in-law. To put Ethan Sullivan in prison, Michael had thoroughly researched every misdeed Ethan had ever committed. Much of this information, Olivia herself had told him back in his previous life. Before he was reborn, everyone in Honors Class A knew about Ethan's relentless harassment of Olivia in high school. Back then, Olivia didn't have Michael to stand up for her that day. She was eventually forced to give Ethan $300. But this $300 didn't satisfy Ethan. It was just the beginning, leading him to repeatedly demand money from his own sister, even becoming physically abusive. Olivia spent almost all of her junior and senior years being harassed by her own brother, becoming more and more withdrawn and unhappy. Her teacher, Mr. Wilson, spoke with her family, but that was right after Arthur passed away. The whole Sullivan family was in chaos, and no one was paying attention to the kids. Even Olivia's parents did nothing. Although Michael knew about Olivia's situation back then, they were barely acquaintances who had hardly exchanged a few words. Plus, he was just a student and wasn't in a position to help. It wasn't until years later, when Michael and Olivia reconnected in college, and after he made his fortune, that he was able to pull Olivia out of the Sullivan family quagmire. Many things he only learned from Olivia after they got married, including how Arthur's family heirloom had been swapped with a fake by Ethan, and how Ethan owed money to loan sharks who had come to their house to collect. Olivia told him all of this. It was using this information that Michael bluffed Ethan. Ethan probably couldn't figure out for the life of him how Michael knew all that. So when Olivia asked Michael what he had said to Ethan to make him leave so abruptly, he couldn't explain the real reason and just laughed it off. Really, I just reasoned with him, and he thought I made sense, so he left. Liar, I don't believe you. Olivia clearly didn't believe a word of Michael's straight-faced nonsense. But she didn't ask again because she had already heard the answer in Michael's thoughts. Olivia said softly, "I'll talk to Grandpa when I get home, don't worry." Originally, she hadn't planned to tell her family about any of this, because it would only make Ethan resent her and make her life at home even worse. But she didn't want Michael to get hurt because of it. Also, she hesitated for a moment, then awkwardly said, "Thank you." It wasn't just about today. His presence had already given her a glimmer of hope for her life. But this heartfelt thanks made Michael frown. "You told me no thanks earlier today," he said seriously. "If you're thanking me now, does that mean the gift you promised is off the table?" Gift? Olivia remembered the gift she promised Michael, and her face flushed red. "Let's talk about it after you get into your dream Ivy League universities," she said vaguely, avoiding his eyes. Just as Michael was about to say something, she abruptly changed the subject. Tomorrow, don't forget what you promised." "I know. Turkey dinner at your place, right?" Olivia counted on her fingers and said seriously, "I'll prepare the gift for you. And when we go to my house, when I introduce you to people, you have to greet them properly. Don't use your usual tone. Oh, and you need to dress nicely tomorrow." As she was talking, she noticed Michael looking at her strangely. What's wrong? "Olivia, is it because your grandpa wants to thank me in person that I'm going to your house for turkey dinner, right?" "Yes. But you're telling me all this so seriously, it feels like I'm going to your house for a marriage proposal." Hearing him say this, Olivia realized she was being a bit too nervous. Subconsciously, she was thinking about how this was the first time bringing Michael home and wanted him to make a good impression on the Sullivan family. But yeah, she was making too much of it. "Why you just do as I say? So troublesome. Don't complain. Why do you still want my investment or not? Okay, you're the boss. I'll listen to you." Michael shrugged and agreed. "Well, whatever. I'm home." Olivia returned home, but was startled by the sound of wailing and howling from the living room. She looked and saw Arthur, his face ashen, leaning on a cane. An ashtray was smashed to pieces on the floor, and in front of Arthur, Ethan was kneeling, clutching his head and sobbing. The left side of his forehead, where Michael had hit him with the stamp earlier, was already bandaged. Now, the right side was also broken, clearly from Arthur smashing the ashtray on him. Olivia's parents stood nearby. Claire looked at her son with a face full of heartache, wanting to intervene, but not daring to. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan glared at their son with grim expressions. Many other Sullivan family members were home, but they kept to themselves as if it was none of their business. A few on the second floor craned their necks to watch, wearing gloating smiles. Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan were angry, but he was still their son. Mr. Sullivan suppressed his anger and pleaded with his father in a low voice. "Dad, you just got out of the hospital. The doctor said you shouldn't get angry. Get out of my sight." Arthur, with his explosive temper, raised his cane and hit his second son with it. Glaring and furious, he pointed at Ethan kneeling on the ground. "Do you dare say you, his father, didn't know what this little beast has been up to? Of all things to get into, gambling, and debt collectors coming to the house? I've never been so humiliated in my life." Arthur was truly enraged, even swearing. He stood, grabbed Ethan's hand, who was kneeling, and forcefully pressed it onto the coffee table. "You like to gamble, huh? I'll break both your hands today and see what you gamble with then." Ethan was so scared that he started sobbing uncontrollably, snot and tears streaming down his face. "Grandpa, I was wrong. I won't do it again. Dad, help me." He never imagined that the high school kid who beat him up earlier would be right. He'd rush home to find loan sharks drinking tea with his grandpa. Facing Arthur, the loan shark didn't dare to be presumptuous. He just took out the IOU and politely explained the situation, saying he was running a small business and couldn't afford long outstanding debts, which was why he had come to collect. Arthur paid off the debt for his grandson, and when the loan shark left, he completely lost it. What the old man hated most in life was gambling. His own father had had his hands chopped off by people who broke into their house over gambling debts when Arthur was just a child. He'd witnessed it all firsthand, giving him a deep-seated aversion to gambling. Ethan had stepped right into it. "Ah!" Ethan suddenly wailed as Arthur smashed his cane down on his wrist. The excruciating pain made him break out in a cold sweat. Claire burst into tears. "Dad, Ethan is your grandson. How can you be so heartless?" "I'll just pretend I don't have this grandson. I wouldn't care if he was beaten to death." Arthur was determined to teach his grandson a lesson he wouldn't forget. Claire, finally noticing Olivia's return, cried out as if seeing a savior. Olivia, please talk to your grandpa." Seeing his sister Olivia Sullivan return, Arthur Sullivan, looking pathetic, pleaded, "Sis, Olivia, please talk to Grandpa." He knew Grandpa cared most for Olivia and that without her intervention, his hand was toast. Olivia, remembering Arthur's ugly sneers he dragged her into the car earlier that day, instinctively took a step back. But her distraught mother stood beside her, and Arthur was putting on a convincing display of remorse. Olivia's expression flickered with conflict, but eventually she approached her grandfather. "Grandpa, are you really going to break Arthur's hand?" Seeing his granddaughter home from school, Mr. Sullivan's face softened slightly, but he still shook his head. "No one's pleas will work today. He needs a lesson he won't forget." Olivia glanced again at Arthur, who was now clasping his hands in supplication. She shook her head. "No, I'm not here to plead for him." She took her grandfather's cane. "I'm saying, using a cane will tire you out. There are knives in the kitchen. Those are quicker. Should I have someone bring one?" "Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan." Arthur, he hadn't expected his sister to be so ruthless. The thought of a kitchen knife nearly sent him into a panic. Was she trying to kill him? Olivia wasn't pleading for him at all. She whispered to her grandfather, "Arthur came to school today and demanded money from me. Michael Thompson tried to help, and Arthur hit him. Michael's the one who saved you last time. I'm afraid Arthur will bother him again." Arthur almost burst into tears. "I hit him? Wasn't it the other way around? He even swindled me out of $300. Sis, you're really twisting the knife." Mr. Sullivan's mustache bristled. "He dares," Olivia continued. "And that family heirloom in your room. What about it?" Arthur swapped it for a fake. He sold a real one to gamble. Mr. Sullivan froze, staring at his granddaughter in disbelief, then hurried toward his room. That heirloom. He'd paid a fortune for it to protect his home and bring good feng shui. Moments later, the sound of crashing objects and the old man's furious roar echoed from upstairs. It seemed he'd discovered the switch. Olivia stuck out her tongue, then under the dumbfounded gazes of her parents and brother, whispered, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to do my homework." Back in her room, Olivia lay on her bed, her heart still pounding. A mix of nervousness and satisfaction surged through her. It was the first time she'd done something like this, and she could imagine her parents' and brother's anger. But she didn't regret it. She had to protect Michael, and with Grandpa around, they wouldn't go too far. Arthur would probably be grounded and wouldn't be able to bother Michael. A smile touched Olivia's lips. She wanted to tell Michael about it, but as she rolled over to reach for her phone, she froze. When had she started? Wanted to share everything with Michael first. Meanwhile, at the Thompson residence, Robert and Margaret Thompson exchanged puzzled looks as they watched their son Michael squatting in the corner, lost in thought. What's wrong with Michael? Is he in a trance? I don't know. He's been like this since he got home. They were completely baffled. But Michael was engaged in something important. In front of him lay several uncut stones Robert had recently purchased. Michael frowned, his eyes fixed on them. Appraise, he thought, a faint glimmer flashing in his eyes. An information panel materialized, displaying details about the stones. This is a chicken bloodstone. That was the initial information. Michael continued to stare intently, and more information appeared. This is a chicken bloodstone, weighing 4 pounds, 16 inches tall from Springfield. He kept staring. This is a chicken bloodstone, weighing 4 pounds, 16 inches tall, and 8 inches thick from Springfield. There is blood 2/3 of the way into the stone. Blood color, vermilion. Blood content, 43%. Blood shape, streaked. There's a large crack inside. Overall quality, 48 out of 100. Yes. Michael felt a surge of excitement. When his system activated, he'd gained 3 skills, one of which was appraise. He'd used it once before, learning that the more intently he focused on an object, the more information he received. He'd wondered if he could use it for judging uncut stones. His appraise skill could reveal a stone's quality before it was cut. This chicken blood stone, for example, would undoubtedly be a loss for his father due to the large crack. Now certain of his skill's application, Michael changed his plans for making his first fortune. He would start with this. His eyes began to ache, and tears welled up. He quickly deactivated the skill, rubbing his eyes. His parents, initially confused, rushed over when they saw him crying. "Michael, what's wrong? Don't cry. Tell Dad what's bothering you." Hearing their genuine concern, he chuckled. "It's nothing. Just got some dust in my eyes." After reassuring his parents, who went back to watching TV with lingering doubts, Michael's good mood returned. He remembered his dinner date with Olivia at the Thompson house the next day. It's not right to visit the Sullivans empty-handed for the first time. Though Olivia had offered to help with a gift, he felt awkward. He decided to prepare a small gift for her grandfather. He would visit his uncles. "Uncle, I need to buy a couple of outfits." "Buy? Nonsense. Go upstairs. Your aunt will pick some out for you." "Uncle, can I borrow some brush, ink, paper, and inkstone? I have an art assignment due tomorrow." "The study's unlocked. Help yourself. Need me to do it for you?" "No, I'll just scribble something myself." The next day, Michael Thompson, looking sharp and full of energy, stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Today, he was going to dinner at the Sullivan family's house. Since he was visiting elders, he naturally wasn't dressed too flashy. He wore a finely tailored suit, which made him look capable and vibrant. This suit was originally a birthday gift from his uncle's family to Michael Thompson, whose birthday was next month, but he had dug it out early. Michael Thompson preened in front of the mirror for a while, then wet his hair and slicked it back into a neat style. "Not bad, very handsome." He nodded in satisfaction, then changed out of the suit and tousled his hair back to its usual style. He still had to go to school today, and wearing a suit to school was a bit odd. He'd save it for when he actually went to the Sullivan families. "Mom, I might be home late tonight." "School thing?" "No, I was invited to a classmate's house." Margaret Thompson, sitting in the yard sunbathing and knitting, nodded casually and said, "Okay, got it." Michael Thompson said, a little disgruntled, "Why don't you ask if it's a boy or girl classmate?" "Jake Wilson from the Wilson family, right? Like I don't know you. Who are you looking down on?" "I'm going to a girl classmate's house to meet her parents." "Huh." Margaret Thompson chuckled, clearly thinking her son was just bragging again. Jokingly, she said, "Local girl, huh? Well, you work hard and bring me back a pretty daughter-in-law." Michael Thompson nodded seriously. "I'll aim for it." Watching her son stride out the yard gate, full of confidence, Margaret Thompson muttered to herself, "I don't know where he learned that from. His father and I are such honest people. He must have been corrupted by his younger uncles. These days, you can't even get anyone to believe the truth." After Michael Thompson arrived at school, he subconsciously started walking towards his old classroom building. But before he even got into the building, he bumped into Jake Wilson coming downstairs to throw out the trash. "Yo, Michael, back to visit the folks?" Jake Wilson teased, and it was then Michael remembered he'd switched classes. His classroom wasn't even in this building anymore. Michael Thompson flipped him off. "You're not even remotely family." "What? Half-brothers aren't family," Jake Wilson grumbled, then walked over and slung an arm around Michael Thompson's shoulder, winking suggestively. "But I wasn't talking about me. I meant Olivia Sullivan." "Huh? Stop playing dumb. The whole class knows you two are going out." "But Michael, you're not cool, man. When did you manage that? You kept it a secret from your own brother." Michael Thompson was stunned for a moment. Rumors going around that he and Olivia Sullivan were dating? Well, that would be the case in the future, right now. He and Olivia Sullivan were just classmates. Not at that stage yet, were they? What was going on? Was there a massive gossip queen in their class? Jake Wilson said with hopeful eyes, "Michael, you've escaped the single life. Don't forget your brother. You snagged the school beauty without a peep. Teach me a couple of moves." "No, I didn't." Still pretending, still pretending. "Seriously, teach me a couple of moves." Lose weight. Anything easier?" Michael Thompson patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "Then aim to become rich." Jake Wilson's face was a sight to behold. Michael Thompson heard the pre-class bell ring and, without lingering to argue with Jake Wilson, said, "I'm going back to my class. And don't go spreading rumors. I'm not dating Olivia Sullivan." He knew how focused Olivia Sullivan was on her studies in high school, how determined she was to get into an Ivy League university and change her destiny. Dating was the last thing on her mind. This was a good thing, so he had no intention of trying to change her mind. Pursuing her in high school might actually turn her off, and Michael Thompson didn't want to risk even the slightest chance of them not ending up together. So, when Michael Thompson was reborn, he had already decided not to deviate from his original life path. And just like before, he would gradually get together with Olivia Sullivan in college. Of course, it wasn't because of Olivia's jealous streak. Once they were together, he wouldn't be so free anymore. Lastly, and most importantly, high school students should focus on their studies, not dating. After leaving building number 1, Michael Thompson returned to building number 3, where the art studio program was located. Since he was new to the class, not many people knew him. No one greeted him when he came in, but Michael Thompson didn't pay much attention and just went straight to his seat. But he noticed the seat next to him was empty and wondered, the bell's already rung. Where's Travis Miller? His deskmate now was Travis Miller, who he'd met yesterday. The student in front of him heard and turned around to say, Travis was called away by Ms. Evans. Langu is Travis Miller's nickname. Michael Thompson asked, puzzled, called away by the teacher? Did he get in trouble? Don't know, but when the teacher came to class just now, she also asked if you were here. Michael Thompson found it odd. Why would she ask if he was here? Just as he was about to ask the student in front of him, he saw Ms. Evans poke her head into the doorway, look around, and then, spotting Michael Thompson, she said, Michael, late on your second day in class? Ms. Evans, I'm not late. I got here right as the bell rang. Still proud of yourself, huh? Come out here for a second to my office. The classroom erupted in laughter, and Michael Thompson's face darkened. Second day here and already being sent to the office? And the thing is, he wasn't even late. He had no choice but to drop his backpack, not even having time to tidy his desk, and got up to leave the classroom, following Ms. Evans to her office. When Michael Thompson got to the office, he saw Travis Miller was already standing there. Oakwood High School didn't have many art teachers, so the office in this building was shared by art, PE, music, and other elective teachers. But right now, besides Ms. Evans, the only people in the office were Michael Thompson and Travis Miller, the two unfortunate souls. Michael Thompson walked over to Travis Miller and whispered, Travis, what's going on? Travis Miller whispered back, don't know, maybe she got dumped again. You know how it is with old spinsters. Ms. Evans's forehead veins were bulging, and she slammed her hand on the desk. I can't hear you. How is it that even the students know about her breakups? Michael Thompson and Travis Miller immediately stopped whispering, lowered their heads, and stood up straight. Ms. Evans took a moment to compose herself, then picked up the stack of art assignments from yesterday, found Travis Miller's submission from yesterday, and placed it on the desk. This drawing, Travis Miller, is this yours? Travis Miller glanced at Michael Thompson, then nodded quickly. Yes, Ms. Evans, it's mine. Ms. Evans picked up a piece of blank paper and a sketching pencil. Good, then draw another one. When you're done, you can go to class. Travis Miller. Laura Gibson watched Travis Miller's embarrassed expression and stifled a laugh. She'd been leading the art studio program for almost a semester now. Even if the other students hadn't made much of an impression on her, how could she not remember Travis Miller? He was the class's notorious abstract master. The kid who could turn a drawing of deviled eggs into an alien invasion. This sudden appearance of a high-quality sketch claimed to be his own work? Who was he kidding? Even a sudden burst of artistic genius wouldn't explain this. Not even novels dared to write such unbelievable plot twists. Laura Gibson turned her gaze to Michael Thompson. Michael, charging a hefty fee for this, weren't you? Nonsense. My prices are fair for everyone, Michael Thompson retorted, feigning innocence. He didn't really try to deny it, knowing he couldn't hide the truth. He'd only helped out of the goodness of his heart. It was just a regular art assignment, and he figured the teacher wouldn't scrutinize it closely. He'd been bored, so he'd sketched it for Travis Miller. He hadn't expected Ms. Evans to be so diligent, actually reviewing the homework for a simple art class. It wasn't a big deal, though. It was just an art assignment. He'd confess if he had to. Travis Miller, however, was trying to be loyal, stubbornly insisting the drawing was his. He was so thick-headed, he'd actually tell a lie that anyone could see through. Ms. Evans wasn't really that bothered. It was just classwork. She'd seen worse. Weekend assignments where students downloaded an image and printed it at a copy shop. She wondered what went on in the minds of these geniuses. Travis Miller, from now on, do your own work? Understood. Yes, Ms. Evans. All right, you can go back to class. Okay, Ms. Evans. I'll head back to class too, Michael Thompson said, attempting to slip out with Travis Miller. Ms. Evans, however, grabbed the back of his collar, stopping him in his tracks. Hold on. Where do you think you're going? Travis Miller couldn't help but grin, giving Michael Thompson a good luck with that look before cheerfully exiting the classroom. Michael Thompson resigned himself to his fate. Turning back with a forced smile, he said to Ms. Evans, Ms. Evans, I promise I'll never do this again. And I definitely won't charge my classmates for doing their art homework. So, you were planning on running a business in my class? Ms. Evans asked, giving him a light swat. Tell me, have you studied art before? A little at home. At home? What does your family do? This piqued Ms. Evans's curiosity. My family works with stone carving. They taught me some drawing and calligraphy when I was young. My uncle Ben Thompson was particularly fond of it. He wasn't lying. His family had taught him those skills. Although the aunts and uncles in the Thompson family were only junior high graduates, they were all skilled calligraphers and painters, particularly in traditional Chinese painting. Art, after all, had common threads. Ms. Evans suddenly thought of something. Stone carving. Thompson, does your family live in Pine Creek Town? Yes. And who is your Uncle Ben Thompson? George Thompson. Ms. Evans's eyes widened in recognition. She knew the Thompson brothers. The Thompson family had produced a nationally recognized master craftsman. George Thompson was also the honorary principal of Pine Ridge Vocational High. Before coming to Oakwood High, Ms. Evans had spent her first 2 years teaching at Pine Ridge. That explained Michael Thompson's artistic talent. Ms. Evans smiled. I was worried you wouldn't be able to keep up after transferring, but it seems I needn't have worried. She looked down at the sketch Michael Thompson had drawn. The more she looked, the less it seemed like the work of a high school student. After a moment's thought, she said, Actually, Michael, I kept you back because I wanted to talk to you about something. What is it, Ms. Evans? This semester is almost over. Finals are in 2 weeks, and then winter break. Would you be interested in attending an art studio program during the break? Ms. Evans had kept Michael Thompson back specifically to discuss this. She'd learned from his previous homeroom teacher, Mr. Wilson, that Michael Thompson was an excellent student academically, practically guaranteed a spot at an Ivy League university. Coupled with his artistic talent, this made Ms. Evans want to nurture his potential. While Oakwood High was Green Valley's top high school, its art program was weak. If next year's top art student in the city came from Oakwood High, Ms. Evans continued, most of our art students learn everything here at school, but our resources are limited. I can pull some strings to get you into a good art studio. You'll improve much faster there, which will give you an edge on the college entrance exams. The school wouldn't normally help students connect with art studios, and the good ones rarely accepted high school students. To cultivate Michael Thompson's talent, Ms. Evans was prepared to use her connections. Michael Thompson appreciated Ms. Evans's kindness, but he couldn't accept. He had his own plans for winter break, and he didn't think he could learn much in an art studio given his current level. Ms. Evans, I'll discuss it with my family and let you know, he said politely. Ms. Evans didn't press him. All right, talk it over with your family. Yes, thank you, Ms. Evans. Michael Thompson had already decided against it. If Ms. Evans asked again in a few days, he'd say his family didn't agree. He thanked Ms. Evans again and left the office to return to class. Michael Thompson didn't realize that his casual excuse had been taken seriously. After he left, Ms. Evans made a phone call. After 2 rings, a sleepy male voice answered. Hello? Ms. Evans didn't mind. Hey, did you see the drawing I sent you? Yeah, I saw it. What do you think of my student? Could he spend some time at your studio over winter break? No way. Ms. Evans was immediately taken aback. What do you mean? You take students from Riverside Prep, don't you? Are you looking down on Oakwood students? No, it's not that. A wry chuckle came through the phone. I really can't take him. Why not? Do you really need me to spell it out? Do you enjoy messing with your brother? That wasn't drawn by your student. I'll bet my head on it. Ms. Evans was stunned, speechless for a moment. The voice on the phone continued. Although, when did old Master Zhang start painting in the romantic style of neoclassicism? I thought he always advocated for modern realism. His technique is still impeccable, though. It really was my student. Sure, your student. Well, your student is way more skilled than your brother. The call ended abruptly, leaving Ms. Evans staring blankly at her phone. High school classes, an endless cycle of passionate teachers and drowsy students. Jason Sullivan was among the sleeping, but he wasn't just napping. He was attending a dream training session, cramming high school knowledge at 10 times the normal speed with a system tutor far superior to any SAT prep class instructor. He was literally becoming stronger in his dreams. Thankfully, the art studio program's teachers weren't as strict as those in the advanced classes, generally leaving sleeping students undisturbed. This allowed Jason to slumber peacefully. While Jason enjoyed his classroom nap, Olivia Sullivan squirmed uncomfortably in Honors Class A. She felt the other students' gazes on her were strange, especially her deskmate, Claire Evans, who kept giving her mischievous grins and mimicking a radio announcer. Spring has sprung, all things are revived, and it's mating season. It was the middle of winter, for goodness sake. Christmas was barely a month away. Olivia had no idea what was going on, but she couldn't help but steal glances at a girl sitting diagonally behind her, a tall girl named Lily Carter. Lily was exceptionally developed for her age, and, although only moderately pretty, her stylish clothes and flair for fashion made her popular with the boys. She likes Michael Thompson. Claire's words from yesterday echoed in Olivia's mind, causing her to constantly observe Lily. Comparing Lily's impressive figure to her own flat chest left Olivia feeling a pang of insecurity. Claire, Olivia sighed, turning to her friend. Claire, who was working on assignment, set down her pen and asked with a grin, "What's up, sis?" Our guys. More into girls with, bigger chests. Olivia mumbled, embarrassed by the question. Claire paused, noticing Olivia's frequent glances at Lily. She said, a knowing smile spreading across her face. Of course. All of them. I don't know about all of them, but the guys in our class, definitely. Last PE class, Michael Thompson and Jake Wilson. Why are you bringing him up? Olivia's cheeks flushed, and she quickly reached to cover Claire's mouth. Claire deftly dodged her hand. Bringing who up? Jake Wilson? She asked with a mischievous glint in her eye. And no one. Olivia stammered, then casually asked, so what happened in P? She was clearly very curious. Claire, amused by Olivia's unusual fluster, decided to tease her. I suddenly forgot. Oh dear, my memory is so bad. I can't remember anything unless I have a soda. What do you want? A Coke. Olivia silently left her seat and headed downstairs to the small diner to buy the drink. When she returned, she had a small bag in hand. Here. She handed Claire the Coke and pulled out a strawberry milk for herself. Claire, I'd the strawberry milk. Olivia, you hate milk. I suddenly like it. Because it's strawberry flavored. I like strawberries. But strawberry milk is all processed. You need to drink regular milk if you want to grow, especially this. Claire made a subtle gesture towards her chest. Olivia silently set down the strawberry milk and walked out of the classroom again. Olivia, class is about to start. Where are you going? Bathroom. When the bell rang, Olivia returned to the classroom, a carton of plain milk in hand. Claire, after Olivia sat down, quipped, "They sell milk in the bathroom now." Olivia's face turned crimson. She ignored the comment and quietly stashed the milk in her desk. Claire giggled, deciding not to tease her further, sensing she was close to pushing Olivia over the edge. She nudged Olivia with her elbow and discreetly slipped her a note. Olivia, Lily Carter asked me to give this to you. Lily Carter? Confused, Olivia took the note. It read, in Lily's handwriting, "Stop staring at me. I'm not competing with you." What? What did that even mean? Michael Thompson had slept from morning till late afternoon, only waking to eat lunch in the cafeteria and use the restroom. Travis Miller, his desk mate, began to suspect Michael was some kind of nocturnal creature, even imagining him having a night job. Michael groggily woke up, his arm numb. "What's up, Travis?" he asked, rubbing his arm in pain. Travis grinned excitedly. "There's a girl waiting for you outside. Super pretty. What's your relationship with her?" Michael glanced towards the classroom door and saw Olivia Sullivan waiting. "You know why she's here?" "Why?" "To pick me up for Thanksgiving dinner at her house." Travis was stunned. "Dude, I've been dating my girlfriend since middle school, and I still haven't taken her home to meet my parents." Michael shrugged. "I haven't even started dating her, and I'm going to her house for Thanksgiving." "Travis, you got to step up your game, man. Watch and learn." After Michael walked past him with his backpack, Travis was still processing the information. He frowned and muttered to himself, "So you're supposed to impress the family first and then pursue the girl." He suddenly snapped his fingers. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Olivia stood awkwardly outside Michael's classroom, feeling incredibly self-conscious. After receiving Lily's note, she'd interrogated Claire and learned that the entire class thought she and Michael were secretly dating. Apparently, the gossip queen had seen them holding hands at the school plaza and Michael getting into her car. Of all people, the gossip queen, whose catchphrase was, "Let me tell you a secret, but don't tell anyone." Within half a day, everyone but Olivia knew this secret. And Olivia, completely oblivious, had confessed her insecurities to Claire. No wonder Claire had that mischievous grin. This was so embarrassing. What a huge misunderstanding. She was so mortified she'd snuck over to see Michael, hoping to avoid being seen by anyone in his class. As she was anxiously waiting, Michael finally appeared, rubbing his arm and yawning. "What's wrong with your arm?" Olivia Sullivan noticed Michael Thompson rubbing his arm as he came out. Michael Thompson glanced down. "It fell asleep. Feels like I touched a live wire." "You came to school to sleep?" Olivia Sullivan was a little annoyed. How was Michael Thompson going to get into Rhode Island School of Design like this? They'd agreed to go to college in Boston together. She was already thinking about having to supervise his studying. And looking at him now, half asleep, hair a mess with a few stubborn strands sticking up, bundled up in a puffy down jacket like a burrito. How was she supposed to bring him home looking like this? "Didn't I tell you to dress nicely?" Crouch down a bit. A little flustered, she stood on tiptoe, reaching out to smooth down his unruly hair. Olivia Sullivan hadn't even realized that, subconsciously, she was already comfortable making such an intimate gesture toward Michael Thompson. He obediently lowered his head. It felt natural to both of them. Neither saw anything amiss. Until someone coughed. Ahem. Ms. Evans, holding a bag, gave the pair a curious look, but said nothing, simply walking past them into the classroom. Only after Miss Evans had disappeared inside did Olivia Sullivan cover her face, embarrassed. But she heard Michael Thompson's inner thoughts. "Showing off my affection in front of an older woman desperate to get married. I'm a true warrior. I'm screwed tomorrow. Who's showing off affection? There's nothing going on between us. At least, not yet." Olivia Sullivan retorted in her mind, annoyed and embarrassed. She sighed. "Forget it. There's still time. I'll take you to buy some clothes." Despite her words, Olivia Sullivan cared a lot about Michael Thompson's first visit to her home. She didn't want to leave a bad impression on him, nor did she want him to make a bad impression on her family. However, Michael Thompson patted the bag he was carrying. "No need. I brought my own." Olivia Sullivan was surprised. "You did?" Michael Thompson nodded. "Of course. Didn't you specifically tell me to dress up today? I remember everything you say." And he paused. "It's my first time at your house, after all. I do care about making a good impression." Olivia Sullivan's eyes widened slightly, a little lost in thought. "He remembers everything I say." His casual words always seemed to warm her heart. Olivia Sullivan shyly lowered her head and pursed her lips. Oblivious to her thoughts, Michael Thompson casually said, "Wait here for a second. I'll go change in the restroom." "Okay." She nodded obediently. Olivia Sullivan waited by the art studio program classroom for a while until she heard the voices of girls doing hall duty next door. "The new teacher. Should we go ask him about it?" "You go." Olivia Sullivan looked towards the sound and froze when she saw Michael Thompson walking towards her. He was wearing a light gray suit that perfectly accentuated his tall figure. His usually messy hair was neatly combed back, shedding his boyish air for a touch of mature composure. He looked at Olivia Sullivan and smiled, a sunny yet gentle smile. It was at this moment that Olivia Sullivan realized Michael Thompson had the potential to be a bit of a heartbreaker. No wonder other girls liked him. But as Michael Thompson reached her side, all that charm vanished. He hugged himself, hunched over, and shivered dramatically. Let's go, I'm freezing." Olivia Sullivan. Don't get so close to me." "Olivia, you don't understand. Back in the frigid Cambrian period, our human ancestors lacked warm clothing, so they relied on huddling together for warmth to survive. Huddling for warmth is human instinct." Michael Thompson and Olivia Sullivan walked side by side along the tree-lined path from Oakwood High School to the school plaza. The campus was bustling with students, some day students heading home for lunch and others walking in groups toward the cafeteria. It was Wednesday, and both boarding and day students had evening study hall. Olivia Sullivan had taken the evening off, while Michael Thompson, without asking for permission, had simply skipped class. Oakwood High School was pretty lax about the art studio program. Just yesterday, Michael Thompson had noticed half the class missing during study hall, and the teacher on duty simply pretended not to see, watching a movie on their laptop. Olivia Sullivan was completely taken aback by Michael Thompson's made-up nonsense, and after a long moment of contemplation, she asked, "Were there even humans in the Cambrian period?" "Michael Thompson, you're definitely the type of guy who'd be good at lying to girls." "Nonsense. Everyone knows I'm the most honest guy at Oakwood High. Even Margaret Thompson says my most shining virtue is my honesty." Of course, this was also a lie. Lately, Margaret Thompson had been wondering where her son had picked up his habit of exaggerating. Although, in this case, what he said to Olivia was true. Olivia Sullivan mumbled, pouting, "I hope so." Michael Thompson looked at her strangely. He felt that Olivia Sullivan was being a bit short with him today. He didn't know that because of the Lily Carter incident earlier, coupled with the sudden realization that Michael Thompson's smooth talk and slightly handsome appearance were actually quite appealing to girls, she was feeling a little threatened. Of course, Olivia Sullivan would never admit that. Pointing at him, she said, "Anyway, if you lie to me, I'll know right away. I'm much smarter than you think." She wasn't lying. If Michael Thompson lied, she really would know. After all, Olivia Sullivan could hear his thoughts. Like right now, she heard him earnestly agree while thinking, really? Back when we first started dating, I told you that you needed an ID to see a movie, and you foolishly believed me. After the movie, on the way back to the dorm, I told you I'd walk you to a nearby hotel and leave you there, and you believed that too. And then, Olivia Sullivan. She suddenly didn't want to hear any more of Michael Thompson's thoughts. Lost in thought, Michael Thompson suddenly noticed that Olivia Sullivan, who had been walking beside him, had silently quickened her pace and moved ahead. "Why are you suddenly walking so fast? Stay away. Perversion is contagious." At the school plaza, the Sullivan family car was already waiting. It took Michael Thompson a good while, after getting into the car, to feel warm again. The walk from campus had been bitterly cold. He felt like his nose was about to freeze off. After putting down her bag, Olivia Sullivan took a small pink wallet from her backpack, opened it, and handed a card to Michael Thompson. "Here, as promised." Michael Thompson looked at the card Olivia Sullivan offered him, a little surprised. He had planned to write a detailed proposal, draft a formal contract, and prepare some finished designs and concept art for Olivia Sullivan's review before he could secure her investment. "The PIN is 6/8, Bank of America," Olivia Sullivan said, puzzled by his hesitation. "Don't you want it?" "No, it's just, aren't you afraid I'll cheat you?" Michael Thompson was confused. "No, I know where you live. What if I lose the money?" Although Michael Thompson had been scheming to get some seed money from Olivia Sullivan's coffers, he felt hesitant when she actually offered it to him. Ultimately, he was just a student, and his relationship with Olivia Sullivan was currently just that of classmates. In this situation, Michael Thompson was confident he could persuade her eventually, but the problem was, she had agreed before he even did anything. What about the 300 ways he had prepared to convince her? Wasted effort? She trusted him that much? Under Michael Thompson's bewildered gaze, Olivia Sullivan put on a fierce expression, her small, canine teeth showing. "If you lose it, you'll be working for me for the rest of your life to pay it back. You'll be Michael Thompson, the indentured servant, and I'll be Olivia Sullivan, the slave driver." Though she tried to look menacing, her cute little face and tiny fangs weren't intimidating at all. Instead, she looked rather endearing. Michael Thompson laughed and took the card, teasing, "Too bad my family doesn't have a shear to offer as collateral. Maybe I should just resign myself to this and let boss Olivia Sullivan take me in. Fine, I'll lock you in a sweatshop and make you work the grindstone every day. And if you don't work, I'll whip you with a small leather whip." Crap, weird images are starting to appear. Michael Thompson rubbed his forehead, quickly stopping his imagination. He looked at Olivia Sullivan and saw that her face had suddenly turned bright red, her eyes wide as she stared at him with a look that seemed almost disgusted. The Sullivan family's villa was in the South City district. It took Michael Thompson an hour to get there. As he got out of the car, he asked Olivia Sullivan, "I've never quite understood. There are 2 good high schools in the city. Why did you choose Oakwood, which is so far from home? It takes 2 hours to commute every day." Olivia Sullivan got out from the other side and walked around to the trunk, stammering, "The ones in the city. My cousins all go there. I don't want to see them at school." Her explanation made sense to Michael Thompson. Although Olivia Sullivan was the only academically inclined one among the younger generation of the Sullivan family, the others, despite being good-for-nothings, attended prestigious schools thanks to their family's wealth. There were only 3 good high schools in Green Valley, 2 in the city, and Oakwood in Pine Ridge County. It was understandable why Olivia Sullivan chose to study here. "Michael Thompson, come help me," Olivia Sullivan urged. Coming, he walked over to her. The trunk was already open, and she pointed to something inside. "Leave your bag in the car. Take this." Michael Thompson saw a beautifully crafted wooden box, smaller than a laptop bag. "I need help carrying something this small," he thought, but he didn't say anything. He picked up the small box and heard a clinking sound inside. "I wonder what's in it." Olivia Sullivan seemed to guess his thoughts and whispered, "When you see my grandpa, say this is the gift you prepared for him." Michael Thompson suddenly understood. Olivia Sullivan was worried he'd show up empty-handed on his first visit to the Sullivan family, so she'd made this arrangement for him. But would an ordinary person prepare such an elaborate gift? Even the wooden box it came in looked expensive. "I can't afford something like this." Olivia Sullivan was still a bit naive, not thinking things through completely. Perhaps her privileged upbringing made her think a gift of this caliber was just right for a student. Michael Thompson didn't say anything, as Olivia Sullivan was only trying to help him. But he didn't notice that as he was thinking these things, Olivia Sullivan, standing next to him, looked increasingly embarrassed. Olivia Sullivan had been hit right on the mark by Michael Thompson's inner thoughts. She really hadn't considered that. Speaking of gifts, mine is still in my backpack in the car. Michael Thompson remembered that he'd also come prepared and hurried back to retrieve it. Although he didn't know if Olivia Sullivan's grandfather would like it, he was here to be thanked, not to ask the Sullivan family for favors. A token of appreciation would suffice. At the Sullivan residence, Arthur Sullivan sat in the living room while the housekeeper and his daughters-in-law bustled about, adding dish after dish to the dining table. Arthur Sullivan's children were all present. His eldest son couldn't help but say, "Dad, a lot of guests want to come today. Since you've just been discharged from the hospital, why not add a few more tables? It will be a lively housewarming party. I've already booked the hotel." Arthur Sullivan glanced at his eldest son, knowing full well that he was currently struggling with a construction project. This banquet wasn't about celebrating his discharge. It was about using the opportunity and his connections to invite some influential figures and smooth the way for his project. He snorted and leaned on his cane. "No need. I don't like crowds. Just a family dinner is fine." His eldest son looked helpless but couldn't argue further, so he just nodded. Arthur Sullivan glanced around the room and saw Ethan Sullivan hiding outside the kitchen with his mother, whispering about something. He hadn't broken Ethan Sullivan's hand yesterday. After all, only confining him to the house for 2 months. He was getting old and soft. However, he was utterly disappointed in Ethan Sullivan. He was considering sending him abroad to a friend's coffee plantation in Central America in a couple of months, just to get him out of his sight. Just as Arthur Sullivan was getting annoyed, he heard the door open. He looked over and saw his granddaughter entering with a rather sunny and capable-looking young man. Arthur Sullivan's stern expression softened when he saw Olivia Sullivan. His gaze quickly fell on the young man beside her. His granddaughter was petite, and standing next to the young man, who was easily 6 feet tall, she seemed even smaller. He couldn't tell what the young man had done to upset his granddaughter, but she was scolding him in a low voice with a serious face, and the young man didn't talk back, just smiled sheepishly. Seems to have a good temper. Arthur Sullivan's gaze grew more approving. "Michael, Buddy is so adorable. How could you be so mean to him?" "Adorable? Seriously? First of all, this Great Dane is taller than me when he stands on his hind legs. And did you not see him about to take a bite out of my leg? He just wanted to play. You shouldn't have thrown rocks at him." "Fine, next time he comes at me, I'll offer him a biblical sacrifice like in church and carve off 2 pounds of my thigh for him." Olivia Sullivan was still complaining to Michael as they walked into the Sullivan family mansion. The reason for her grumbling was that as they came in from the yard, they had encountered a Great Dane napping there. The dog, for some reason, had taken a dislike to Michael, baring its teeth and barking incessantly before lunging at him. Michael, startled, almost tried to hit it with a spinning back kick, but realizing it was too complicated a move, he instead threw a couple of stones to scare it off. This, naturally, earned him a stern lecture from dog lover Olivia. He'd been hearing about it the entire way to the house and decided he'd treat the dog like royalty from now on, giving it a wide berth whenever he saw it. Olivia's complaints, however, stopped at the foyer. Once inside, she fell silent. "Grandpa," Olivia led Michael into the living room where they found the family patriarch. Arthur Sullivan smiled warmly. "Olivia, dear, you're back. And this must be Michael." Olivia gently pulled Michael forward, smiling. "Yes, Grandpa. This is Michael, the one I told you about. He was the one who found you and called 911 so quickly last time." Michael gave a polite greeting. "Sir, it's a pleasure to meet you." Arthur Sullivan sized up the young man before him. He vaguely remembered Michael from when he'd briefly regained consciousness after being rescued, but he'd been too out of it to really take in his appearance. Looking at him now, he was impressed. Tall, good-looking. But what pleased Arthur most was Michael's natural demeanor. He wasn't nervous or awkward, just composed and polite. Olivia, on the other hand, Arthur glanced at his granddaughter. Her face was etched with anxiety, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She kept darting nervous glances between Michael and himself, as if terrified he wouldn't approve of her young guest. Then he remembered that the reason Michael had been there to rescue him in the first place was because Olivia had arranged to meet him in the park outside. Arthur Sullivan gave Michael a kind smile and nodded. "Please sit down. Make yourself at home. No need to be shy." "Thank you." Michael settled gracefully onto the sofa next to Arthur, maintaining a respectful distance while still being close enough for easy conversation. Arthur Sullivan began. I really owe you my deepest thanks. If it hadn't been for you, this old body of mine wouldn't be sitting here today. More likely, my picture would be hanging in the hall. Before Michael could respond, Olivia jumped in, nodding vigorously. Yes, Grandpa, yes. The doctor said it was a miracle he got you to the hospital in time, or it could have been much worse. Arthur Sullivan continued. I invited you here today to thank you in person. Frankly, just saying thank you feels inadequate, but I haven't had time to prepare a proper gift. Again, before Michael could speak, Olivia cut him off. Oh, Grandpa, no need for gifts. Michael is just a naturally helpful person. He doesn't expect anything in return. Right, Michael? This time, both Michael and Arthur Sullivan turned to look at her, a strange expression on their faces. Olivia blinked, confused by their stares. Arthur Sullivan was momentarily speechless. His usually sharp granddaughter. What was with her today? Was she just flustered? He cleared his throat. Olivia, perhaps we should let your friend get a word in edgewise. Michael nodded in agreement. He's right. Olivia finally realized she'd been monopolizing the conversation, not giving Michael a chance to speak. A wave of embarrassment washed over her. She wanted to disappear. She'd been interrupting him because, knowing Michael's tendency to say off-the-wall things that both flustered and secretly delighted her, she was worried he'd make a bad impression on her grandfather. She thought she was doing him a favor, and yet, Michael was agreeing with her grandpa that she was being rude. Olivia briefly considered abandoning her protective role, but she held her tongue, determined to stay vigilant and smooth over any potential faux pas. But to her surprise, as her grandfather asked Michael questions, Michael's answers were perfectly appropriate, polite without being fawning. His voice was gentle and calm. He smiled easily, and his occasional light-hearted jokes even had her grandfather chuckling. Listening, Olivia felt a strange shift within her. So he wasn't always so unconventional with everyone. He did have a serious side. Maybe it was just with her that he was different. Michael was enjoying the conversation with Arthur Sullivan. In his previous life, he'd built a large business and met all sorts of people, naturally developing a knack for social graces. While he wouldn't go so far as to say he was two-faced, he knew how to tailor his conversation to his audience. Though he'd never met Arthur Sullivan before, he'd often heard his wife speak of him as the kindest elder in the Sullivan family. He knew a fair bit about Arthur's life and interests, which made for easy conversation. Besides, Arthur was warm and approachable, not at all pretentious. Michael was having a great time chatting, but Arthur was becoming increasingly impressed. He found a young man witty, humorous, and remarkably knowledgeable. He could hold his own on a wide range of topics, and his insights were always sound, not just empty talk. For instance, when Arthur mentioned his love for calligraphy and painting, Michael could discuss everything from Gu Kaiji of the Eastern Jin dynasty to modern masters like Su Beihong and Zhang Daqian, moving seamlessly between Chinese and Western art. Arthur began to wonder if Michael was really just a high school student. Though Michael was dressed smartly today, there was still a youthful air about him. Before they knew it, it was dinner time. Dad, should we eat now? Olivia's friend must be hungry too. Arthur Sullivan was surprised at how quickly the time had flown. He felt like they'd just gotten started. He pushed himself up with his cane, and Michael immediately rose to assist him. The old man smiled, accepting the help, and patted Michael's hand. Care for a drink? Sir, I'll have to pass on the alcohol. Michael said with a touch of shyness. I'm not quite of age yet. Gotta keep those values straight. No underage drinking. Michael could hold his liquor. The Thompson family were all drinkers. Every year, they brewed their own wine, storing jars of it in the basement. Some have been aging for nearly 20 years. Thompson kids were practically weaned on bourbon, a taste offered on chopsticks before they could even talk. The problem was, Michael tended to get a bit loose-lipped after a few drinks. While that might be fine elsewhere, it wouldn't do at the Sullivans. Arthur Sullivan, surprised by Michael's indirect refusal, chuckled and nodded. All right, you're right. No need to learn these habits at your age. You and Olivia can have some soda. With Michael's help, the old man and the young girl made their way to the dining table. The other Sullivans exchanged glances. The pair looked more like grandfather and granddaughter than the Sullivans did themselves. After settling Arthur Sullivan at the head of the table, Michael started to find a random seat, but Olivia tugged at his sleeve. Introduce yourself to everyone, she whispered. Michael nodded and followed her to greet the Sullivan family elders. This is Uncle Harold and Aunt Susan, she said. Hello, Uncle Harold, Aunt Susan, Michael greeted politely. And this is Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan, my parents. You met my mom at the parent-teacher conference. Olivia continued the introductions, Michael trailing behind her, smiling and greeting everyone courteously. Arthur Sullivan had a large family. His first 3 children were sons, followed by 2 daughters. The eldest son, Harold, was a portly, balding, jovial-looking man, perpetually smiling like an affable businessman. The second son, Samuel, Olivia's father, though in his early 40s, was handsome but stern-faced. He wore a crisp white shirt, looking like an executive just home from work. The third son, Victor, was nondescript and spoke slowly, with an unhurried manner. One daughter lived far away and wasn't present, while the other, divorced, lived with the family but sat quietly at the far end of the table, almost invisible. Michael was familiar with the Sullivan family dynamics. He knew who everyone was, even without Olivia's introductions. What surprised him was the stark difference in their attitudes compared to his first visit with Olivia. This time, as Olivia introduced him, the relatives responded warmly, even asking about his studies. Even Samuel nodded politely. He pondered for a moment and quickly arrived at an answer. He was here on different terms. This time, he was Arthur's savior. And there was another, more crucial reason. Michael glanced at Arthur. Perhaps the biggest reason was the old man himself. As long as he was alive, he kept the family's more unsavory elements in check. After the greetings, Olivia led Michael to the end of the table, seating him beside her. He noticed the other Sullivan children were at a separate table. At this table, besides Olivia, there was only a cousin of hers and one empty seat. Olivia, looking anxious, whispered, "Grandpa doesn't like talking during dinner. If he doesn't ask you anything, don't speak, okay? So many rules. Please." Olivia's near-pleading tone made Michael smile and agree. As they whispered, Victor chuckled and teased Samuel. "If I didn't know better, I'd say Olivia brought her boyfriend home to meet the family." Samuel's eyes flashed with displeasure, but his voice remained calm. "Olivia's still young, Victor. Don't joke like that. Not that young. I'll marry my wife at her age. What's most important for a girl? Finding a good husband. You know Lily Johnson from my company? Got a doctorate, but what good is it? 30-something and still single. Her parents are frantic, even asked me to help find her someone. Women aren't cut out for the corporate world anyway. Victor, why do you concern yourself with other people's affairs?" Samuel's voice now held a clear edge of annoyance, but Victor seemed oblivious, about to continue until Arthur slammed his hand on the table. He glanced at his 2 sons, then, without comment, turned to his daughter-in-law, frowning slightly. "Where's Ethan?" Claire, Olivia's mother, stood up awkwardly. "Ethan must be busy. I'll go get him." "Go on, then. Don't keep everyone waiting." "Yes, sir." Claire hurried upstairs. Michael had heard the entire exchange, amused by their passive-aggressive jabs. It was clear there was tension between Samuel and Victor's families. Once Arthur shut down the conversation, Michael turned to Olivia, who sat with her head down, eyes red-rimmed, fighting back tears. Michael reached under the table and gently pinched her side. She jumped, straightening up. Olivia was extremely ticklish. She glared at Michael, but couldn't react further in front of her family, hissing, "Stop it." Michael grinned. Olivia huffed and turned away, but his antics had distracted her, lightening her mood. Upstairs, Ethan reluctantly followed his mother down. Claire was still trying to reason with him. "Just stay home for a few days. Once your grandfather calms down, I'll figure something out." Ethan sulked. The thought of 2 months of house arrest was driving him crazy, hence his pleas to his mother for help. But Claire didn't dare disobey Arthur and could only offer empty comfort. "Your grandfather is having dinner with a young man who saved him. Be polite." Claire's words went in one ear and out the other. As Ethan reached the landing, he glanced at the dining room and froze. "Michael." He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was mistaken. But no matter how much he rubbed, Michael was still there, sitting calmly. What's he doing here? Ethan's first thought was that Michael, not satisfied with their previous encounter, had come to finish the job. What nerve! But then he remembered that his grandfather was hosting the person who had saved him. Looking at the table, everyone else was family. So, Michael was the one who saved his grandfather? How could it be so coincidental? Coupled with the fact that Michael knew about his gambling debts, the stolen heirloom, and then conveniently save his grandfather. Could it all be a coincidence? Ethan stared at Michael, a chill running down his spine, his hair standing on end. He smelled a rat. Claire, noticing her son had stopped, turned back. What is it? Hurry up, your grandfather's waiting. She trailed off, seeing her son's pale face and the sweat beading on his forehead. Ethan, what's wrong? Ethan swallowed hard, his voice trembling. Mom, I don't feel so well. I'm going back to my room. He didn't wait for a response, hurrying back upstairs. Arthur, seeing Claire return without Ethan, frowned. But in front of everyone, he simply nodded and said, "Let's eat." During dinner, Olivia was unusually quiet, picking at the food in front of her. Michael, in contrast, seemed perfectly at ease, reaching for whatever dishes caught his eye, even asking for seconds. Olivia began to wonder if she was the guest in her own home. Michael, however, had no such thoughts. He was enjoying the meal. The Sullivan chef, hired from a top restaurant, was clearly talented. The food was delicious, and he ate with gusto. Finished, Michael leaned back contentedly, almost burping. Olivia nudged his leg under the table, gesturing with her lips towards Arthur. She was reminding him about the gift. Michael nodded, picked up the small wooden box from the floor, and approached Arthur with a smile. "Mr. Sullivan, a small token of congratulations on your recovery, and for my first visit. There's no need for gifts, you're still a student." Arthur demurred. Michael smiled, placing the box on the table. "It's from Olivia." Arthur glanced at his granddaughter in surprise, while Olivia stared at Michael, shocked. She hadn't expected him to tell the truth. Arthur, shrewd and perceptive, understood the situation perfectly. It seemed his granddaughter was even more smitten with this Michael than he'd thought, going to such lengths to make a good impression on his behalf. He'd been unsure about their relationship, but now he was almost certain. He opened the box to reveal a set of exquisite teacups. Though they were store-bought, they were from his granddaughter, and Arthur was pleased. He nodded slightly. Michael, still standing before him, fumbled in his coat and produced a rolled-up scroll. "And this is from me." Arthur, surprised, had assumed the gift-giving was over. He took the scroll, figuring it couldn't be anything too expensive. The texture told him it was Chien paper, something he was very familiar with due to his love of calligraphy and painting. He unrolled it and froze. The painting depicted lush green pines, partially obscuring distant clouds, with a majestic tiger standing amidst the layered mountains. Its mouth was open in a roar, fangs bared, exuding the aura of the king of the jungle. "Excellent, excellent," Arthur exclaimed, his eyes alight with pleasure. His experience with art allowed him to judge a painting's quality, and this one, capturing both the beauty of the mountains and the tiger spirit, was clearly the work of a skilled artist. It was the perfect gift. The only flaw was a crease in the middle, likely from being folded carelessly. He'd seen Michael fold it haphazardly just moments ago. Arthur mentally chided the young man. He'd seemed to understand art during their conversation, yet didn't even know how to handle a painting properly. He was about to check the artist's seal when he paused. There's no seal. A seal acted as the artist's signature, and old paintings often accumulated seals from previous owners, increasing their value. As Arthur pondered this, Michael said sheepishly, "I just doodled it, and I don't have a seal. Maybe I'll carve one and stamp it on later." "He painted it." Arthur gasped, staring back and forth between Michael and the painting. Upon closer inspection, the paper was new, the ink still slightly wet, with a faint scent of ink. It truly was a fresh painting. Arthur couldn't help but ask, "You really painted this?" Michael nodded. "Oh," Arthur murmured, seemingly deep in thought. The other Sullivans exchanged puzzled glances, unsure of his reaction. From their angle, they could only see the back of the scroll. Olivia was stunned. She hadn't expected Michael to bring his own gift, and her grandfather seemed to love it. Was it expensive? She worried that Michael might have splurged and debated offering to reimburse him later, but didn't want to hurt his pride. Suddenly, as if struck by an idea, Arthur grabbed Michael's hand. "Come with me." He pulled him towards the stairs. Mr. Sullivan led Michael Thompson to the study on the second floor. This study was normally only used by Arthur Sullivan himself. Without his permission, no one from the Sullivan family could enter. Inside the study, the walls were covered with calligraphy and paintings. Each piece was carefully framed. Mr. Sullivan had bought them as antique artworks, and each one was very valuable. As soon as Michael Thompson entered, he was dazzled. For a moment, he thought he had walked into a museum. Mr. Sullivan personally prepared paper and brushes for him and beckoned him over. "Young Michael Thompson, come and take a look." Michael Thompson walked over and saw that there was a painting felt on the desk. A piece of drawing paper, half finished, was laid out neatly on top, held down by paperweights. Looking at the painting, it was an imitation of an ancient figure painting, a beauty painting. Judging by the style of clothing, it seemed to be imitating the Tang dynasty. However, everything else in the painting was done except for the face of the figure, which was indeed untouched by brushstrokes. Mr. Sullivan smiled wryly and said, "I've been working on this painting for almost 2 months now, but I just can't seem to get the face right. How should her subtle smile, her expressions of happiness, anger, sorrow, and joy be depicted? No matter how I paint it, It just doesn't feel right. Why don't you give it a try? Michael Thompson understood. The old man was testing him. He probably didn't believe that the painting he had just given him was his own work. Directly saying so would be impolite. So he wanted to use this test as a pretext to get Michael Thompson to admit the truth himself. He wasn't intimidated. After a brief thought, he picked up a brush and started painting. While painting, he said, "Sir, have you studied painting professionally?" Michael Thompson was subtly flattering him, but in reality, Mr. Sullivan's painting was at best just passable for an amateur. But Mr. Sullivan loved to hear these kinds of compliments. But if you praised his calligraphy or painting skills, he would be delighted. Mr. Sullivan laughed and said, "I studied with a few teachers, but it's just a little hobby I picked up after retirement." TSK, what a waste of talent. Haha, it's nothing worth mentioning. While they were talking and laughing, Michael Thompson had already finished painting. He put down the brush, stepped aside, and said, "Okay, sir, please take a look and see if you're satisfied." Mr. Sullivan, who had been smiling, instantly stopped laughing. "It's done already?" In just a few words. He quickly stepped forward to take a look. He saw that in the figure painting on the desk, the previously blank face had been filled in. Almond-shaped eyes, red lips, eyes that seemed to hold endless shyness, and slightly upturned corners of the mouth that seemed to hide boundless joy. Although nothing more had been added to the painting, Mr. Sullivan felt as if the woman in the painting was secretly glancing behind her, as if there was someone she was interested in behind her. This made him involuntarily look behind the painting as well, only to see a blank space on the paper. With just this one expression, the girl's shyness and joy, reserve and yearning for love were vividly expressed. In comparison, everything else in the painting seemed to pale in comparison. Mr. Sullivan looked at it for a long time, then put down the painting. "Young Michael Thompson, how old are you this year?" 17. "How many years have you been learning to paint?" "Oh, I can't remember." Michael Thompson wasn't lying about this. If you really counted, he had been learning traditional Chinese painting since he was a child. Mr. Sullivan asked again, "Have you studied with a master?" "Not formally, just learned from my aunts and uncles in the family for a while." Michael Thompson answered truthfully. "I heard from Olivia Sullivan that you're planning to apply to the Rhode Island School of Design. Is that right?" "Yes, that's the plan." Mr. Sullivan stroked his chin as if pondering something. Michael Thompson didn't want to interrupt and just waited aside. After a while, Mr. Sullivan said, "All right, how about you come to our house for dinner again in a couple of days? I'll tell Olivia Sullivan the specific day, and she can bring you." What? You don't want to come?" Michael Thompson immediately denied it. "Of course not. I love chatting with elders." Mr. Sullivan smiled wryly and shook his head. He could see through it. This kid was good with words. He was clearly a little unwilling, but he didn't show it at all on his face. Now, seeing that it was just him and Michael Thompson in the study, he asked, "Speaking of which, you and Olivia Sullivan, are you two very close?" "Classmates, just pure classmate friendship." Michael Thompson immediately denied. In his previous life, he hadn't had contact with Mr. Sullivan. Although Olivia Sullivan said her grandfather was the best to her, how would he know what the old man was thinking? What if he objected? People in the Sullivan family were like that. Moreover, he and Olivia Sullivan were just classmates right now. Mr. Sullivan was taken aback. "I haven't even finished asking yet. Why are you in such a hurry to deny it? Could it be that my granddaughter has a crush on you, but this kid isn't interested? What's wrong with Arthur Sullivan's granddaughter?" Mr. Sullivan, who had always doted on his granddaughter, suddenly felt displeased. Just then, the study door opened, and Olivia Sullivan carefully peeked her head in, holding a tea tray, before walking in. "Grandpa, I brought some tea." Although she didn't know why Grandpa had called Michael Thompson away alone, she was still worried and couldn't help but use the excuse of bringing tea to come and check. Arthur Sullivan, of course, understood his little granddaughter's thoughts. Seeing her come in, he chuckled and said, "Young Michael Thompson, you young people go have fun? Keeping you here to talk with an old man like me is boring anyway." Before Michael Thompson could say anything, Olivia Sullivan was overjoyed. She grabbed Michael Thompson and said, "That's right, Grandpa just got out of the hospital. The doctor told him to rest more." "Well then, Grandpa, I'll take Michael Thompson with me first." Go on. Olivia Sullivan had originally intended to take Michael Thompson away, but as soon as they came out of the study and went downstairs, her mother called her over. She had no choice but to let Michael Thompson watch TV in the living room for a while. There were also a few younger members of the Sullivan family in the living room, making a lot of noise. Michael Thompson couldn't sit still either, so he simply went out to the yard. "Hey buddy, I've come to see you." Michael Thompson was holding a bowl of beef jerky. It was leftovers from dinner. When he came out, he saw the nanny about to throw it into the trash can at the door, so he took it to feed the dog. The large wolfhound, named Buddy, was tied to a tree trunk in the yard. It had been lying down sleeping, but as soon as it saw Michael Thompson approaching, it immediately got up. As it moved, the chain rattled. Woof! Woof! The large wolfhound lunged and barked at Michael Thompson, but unfortunately, it was restrained by the chain and couldn't reach him a bite. Michael Thompson kept a safe distance and sat down on the brick-paved ground without minding the dirt. Oh ho ho! I just love watching you try to bite me, but can't. He casually tossed a piece of beef jerky over. Seeing there was meat to eat, the dog stopped barking, ran over, and used its paws to hold down the jerky, lying down and gnaw on it. Michael Thompson chuckled and scolded. Buddy, I'm returning good for evil. You're so fierce to me, and I'm still feeding you bones. You better appreciate it next time. Just as he was amusing himself by teasing the dog, he heard a bell-like laughter from nearby. Hee hee, are you always this funny when you talk? Michael Thompson turned his head, and the hand holding the beef jerky trembled in surprise. Michael Thompson almost thought he'd seen a ghost. Standing behind him was a tall, slender girl. Despite the winter chill, she wore a denim miniskirt and black tights, showcasing her long legs. A pink fleece pullover covered her upper body. She looked younger than Michael, maybe even a bit younger than himself, but sported vibrant purple hair styled in loose waves. Her face was caked in thick, white makeup, giving her a ghostly pallor. Bright red lipstick coated her lips, and exaggerated smoky eye makeup darkened her eyes, which were further enhanced by colored contacts. Even among the most unconventional, this girl would have been a VIP member. Violet Sullivan. Michael stared at her for a moment, silent. The girl covered her low-cut neckline, giggling and spitting. Pervert, what are you looking at? Michael thought, could you at least look in a mirror before saying that? He felt his aesthetic sensibilities deeply offended. The girl sat beside Michael, pulled a slim pack of cigarettes from her pocket, took one, and offered the pack to Michael. Here. Michael glanced at the pack, noting the blueberry label. Not interested in candy, he declined. Unfazed, the girl returned the cigarettes to her pocket and lit her own with a lighter. As she did, Michael noticed a butterfly tattoo on the back of her right hand. She took a long drag, exhaled, and turned to Michael. Hey, you the boyfriend my cousin brought home, right? I need to correct you on 2 points, Michael said seriously, holding up 2 fingers. First, I wasn't brought home to meet the parents. I'm here because I saved your grandpa, and he invited me for dinner. Second, my name isn't Hay. It's Michael Thompson. The girl mumbled, Michael Thompson. Such a girly name. Then, seemingly unconcerned, she added, whatever. She sat cross-legged, picking up pebbles and throwing them at a large dog. When a pebble hit its mark, provoking a furious bark, she'd burst into laughter. Michael watched her for a while, puzzled. He didn't recall this girl from the Sullivan family, even after years of being married to Olivia Sullivan in his previous life. But if she called Olivia her cousin, she must be a Sullivan. He also realized she hadn't approached him intentionally. She was just outside for a quiet smoke away from her family and hadn't really interacted with him since sitting down. Michael didn't mind her presence and continued to watch her tease the dog. Olivia was in a foul mood. Her mother, Claire Sullivan, had lectured her extensively, saying things like, you should be focusing on your studies, your brother was always so fond of you, and that classmate of yours today. Claire was somewhat snobbish and favored her son, but as a mother, she was also perceptive. She noticed Olivia's fervent defense of Michael at dinner, and her help in preparing a gift for her grandfather. It had raised red flags. Claire was also still angry about Olivia's refusal to help persuade her grandfather about Ethan the previous day. Was she happy Ethan got punished? That was her own brother. Now, having the opportunity, Claire was determined to lecture her daughter, even resorting to harsh words. Olivia, generally meek, especially in front of elders, endured it silently, feeling deeply wronged. For some reason, she desperately wanted to talk to Michael, but after searching the house, she couldn't find him. The housekeeper informed her he was in the courtyard. Olivia quickly spotted him, but before she could feel relieved, she noticed the girl beside him. Though she was facing away, the vibrant purple hair was a dead giveaway. Michael! Michael turned to see Olivia standing behind him, her brow furrowed. He stood up. Done talking with your mom? Instead of answering, Olivia rushed over and protectively placed herself in front of him. Violet Sullivan, what do you think you're doing? Michael looked down, surprised by her defensive posture and the hostility she directed towards her cousin. The girl on the ground tossed her cigarette, but grinding it with her foot. Cousin, why so tense? I'm not trying to steal your boyfriend. WH who said he's my boyfriend? Olivia's voice rose several octaves, like a startled cat. If he's not your boyfriend, why do you care so much? Olivia was speechless. Violet grinned at Michael. Hey, handsome, want to go karaoke tonight? Lots of girls will be there. It was a clear attempt to provoke Olivia. Olivia remained silent, but her grip tightened on Michael's shirt. Seeing this, Michael quickly said, Can't. My mom wants me home for dinner. Didn't you just eat? All right, home for a late-night snack then. Violet rolled her eyes. As she passed Michael, she lowered her voice, so childish. Boring. Olivia bristled. Who are you calling childish? I'm your older cousin. Michael grinned at Violet. Grown-up stuff. You wouldn't understand. Violet stared at Michael, aghast, taking an involuntary step back. Then, with a look of disgust, she clicked her tongue and walked away. Once she was gone, Olivia punched Michael's arm. Clearly, she heard his teasing remark. Michael rubbed his arm, feigning injury. Hey, I was sticking up for you. Be grateful a regular classmate would go to such lengths. Regular classmate. Olivia angrily punched him again, but this time Michael dodged. Saint Seiya can't be hit by the same move twice. Olivia ignored him, stomping off. Michael followed. That little delinquent is your cousin. Yeah, Uncle Victor's daughter. Why? Interested. Olivia's voice was laced with sarcasm. As if insulted, Michael recoiled dramatically. What are you saying? My taste has standards, thank you. That girl could crawl out of a well and play Sadako without even trying. It wasn't exaggeration. Violet's appearance was genuinely unsettling. Olivia, initially annoyed, started to laugh. It's not that bad.